I'm hotter than you.
Nuh-uh.
Yaha! Well, everybody, welcome to this episode of the Cheap Seat Critics podcast, where we're covering Twilight Eclipse, the third one in this. It's not. What is it?
Qu-
Pentagon?
Quin-
I don't know what it is.
Quintilogy.
Quintilogy. Ooh. With me today
Quintology.
we have.
Hello, everybody. I'm one of your hosts, a geeky writer.
I'm Crimson Maroon.
And I'm Sprinks. And special guest today we have Loque. Loque, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, long-time listener, short-term fan. Woo.
Awesome.
Well put.
We'll take it. We'll take it.
Sweet. Yeah. So Twilight Eclipse, third one. We'll start with our histories over it. Writer, what is your
Socials.
history with this? Oh, yeah. Thanks for reminding me, Crimson. Socials. Hey, little out of whack with a guest here. Hey, if you look up Cheap Seat Critics podcast on the interwebs, you'll find us under like a Facebook, a Twitter, X, whatever the kids say nowadays. TikTok, Instagram. We have a letterbox for scores that are all averaged out of whatever we've covered, as well as a visual side of things on YouTube and Rumble. Now histories. Okay. Ryder, what is your history with Twilight Eclipse?
This was the one I think I actually remember the least about. So it was almost like a fresh take, I guess, rewatching it for me. But my history is the same as others. I know I've seen it at least once, and like most of the rest of the saga, it got ejected from my brain at some point.
Deleted.
Okie dokie. Crimson, what's your history?
Uh, Same as the previous two, pretty much, in the aspect that I've seen it twice for the podcast and didn't really have anything before that. So, pretty simple. I have no film cells of this one.
Oh, good to know. I'll go next, and then we'll go to Luke. My history with this is my second time seeing Twilight Eclipse. I thought of scenes in New Moon I thought were in this film, so there's chunks of this I don't remember until watching it for the pod, and then I've never read the book for Eclipse. So Loque, your history.
I have watched all of the Twilight movies all the way through at least 14 times. I think Eclipse stands out as a great solo movie. You don't really need all the other ones. It just kind of stands alone. You learn about the character plots and stuff, and I think it's one of my favorite movies out of all the Twilight ones.
Do you ever watch just this, or do you marathon them?
I watch all of them. Binge watch.
Okie doke. I have a couple facts of the film. So it was initially released of June 24th, 2010. It has a runtime of 2 hours and 4 minutes. It had a budget of 68 million USD, where its box office was 698.4 USD. It has a rating of PG-13, and its genre is fit under romance/fantasy. It is directed by David Slade, whose known work is such as Dark Harvest, Black Mirror Bandersnatch, and he also directed 5 episodes of Hannibal, the TV show, including Season 1, Episode 1, and Season 1, Episode 13.
Interesting. So I am familiar with this work.
And then a couple fun facts I have. Kristen Stewart received her high school diploma by correspondence 1 week before filming Bella's graduation scene. She took a mock graduation photo with an extra so she'd have a photo of herself graduating high school.
Okay.
Also, keep in mind, audience, these are facts found from the internet. Who knows how true or false they may be. So just to iterate that. Second fun fact. In the stories that Billy Black tells at the bonfire, the third wife was originally going to be played by Kristen Stewart. She did perform the scene, but the director David Slade and author Stephanie Meyer thought it had an unintentional comedic effect.
Yeah, I would have found that funny.
Yeah, I'm in agreement. That would have been very funny.
Third fact. Kristen Stewart wore a wig for this film after cutting her hair short for The Runaways 2010. Runaways.
Oh, I didn't pick that up at all. Good wig.
Next, Tom Felton, who played Draco Malfoy, and Channing Tatum were considered to play Riley.
I think both of those would have been possibly better choices. I think.
I don't think Channing Tatum.
No, I mean,
Maybe
like
Malfoy.
I think that it would have changed the character as we got him, because there's obviously a very specific visual aesthetic that they're going for here with Riley. But I can see both of those actors playing in the role essentially. Channing Tatum is what I think would have been a slightly different take on the character.
Loque, since you seem to be the biggest Twilight fan out of the crew here, do you recognize the actor who played Riley in other things?
No, I don't. I know he's in a few other things, but Riley Beers is the first thing I've seen him portray.
Okay. I have two more fun facts. Rachel Lafleur, hopefully I pronounced that correctly, was fired by Summit Entertainment for this film because her filming schedule overlapped that of another film, Barney's Version of 2010, and she was replaced by Bryce Dallas Howard.
Okay, well that answers the question.
Oh yeah, for Victoria's character.
The recast.
Victoria
Yeah.
recast.
I wrote that down. I'm like, did Victoria get recast? I put that in question marks. I thought I recognized her. Yeah, Bryce Dallas Howard. Makes sense.
And the last fact I have is, unlike the first two films, Twilight and New Moon, this film does not contain a reference to the picture on the corresponding book cover. In Twilight, the first one, Edward catches Bella's apple in the canteen, and in New Moon, when Carlisle sets fire to blood and glass from the cut on Bella's arm, they form the shape and color of the ruffled tulip on the book cover.
Interesting.
I didn't see that fact last time.
We didn't catch that in New Moon. But there was no book cover reference in this film. And that's all the facts I have.
All right.
Unless anyone has any other facts.
This was the third film in the series.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Smartass. Anything else?
Nah,
Nope.
I'm good. Ready to go.
Okay,
Nope.
sweet. With that, we'll jump into the film. Today we're doing a 3-act structure, popcorn style, where we'll be beginning from the beginning of the film, surprise, all the way up to Rosalie's backstory, which is roughly the 45-minute mark in the film. Rosalie's backstory can be covered within this act. With that, let us start with our guest to go to any topic he'd like to start with first. Loque, go ahead and go.
The graduation ceremony shows like how Bella is kind of super distancing herself from having a normal life and basically wanting to just continue down the route of the crazy thrill of being around vampires and not having the traditional high school experience.
Yeah, and it was certainly compounded by what was Anna Kendrick's character? Was it Jessica?
Jessica.
Stephanie.
Jessica. Compounded with what her speech was talking about predominantly, which is taking chances, risks, which is something Bella's been tackling with Jacob telling her all the risks, and Edward of the whole vampire turning. So very on the nose. I think it's good for it.
It's running a good parallel. One of my favorite things I actually really liked about the scene is that Charlie's giving a standing ovation, and even though he's the only one who's standing up for Bella, I think.
I agree. I did like that cut to the shot of Charlie.
Charlie's the man. I would love just a Charlie movie or show. I'd watch it.
We're big fans of Charlie on this podcast, Look.
Oh yeah, well, Daddy Charlie has nowhere but room in my heart. So,
Hey, Loque's on the team, Charlie.
Thankfully, we'd have a real talking to if not on TV.
No.
I would have a long talk.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. I'll go to actually towards the very beginning. There's a makeup mistake, or maybe a mistake that I caught that was odd for me of Riley when Victoria's playing with her food and throwing him around. She throws him against a building, so his back hits the building, and he lands onto the sidewalk with the left side of his face. But when he stands up, he has bruise marks on the right side of his face. There was nothing that hit his right side.
Her punch. I don't know.
Her punch sending him was the
Maybe
hit?
maybe the air molecules were a little denser in the direction he was thrown.
He could have hit
the sheer
hail on the way
speed.
there.
Yeah, it could have been hail. It could pocket hail.
Pocket hail.
It's a thing. I've heard of it. Okay.
I want to ask you guys: is the Sad Seattle Blue back for that scene? Because it felt like
That's
it was.
a great question.
It's definitely some sort of filter. I don't think it's Sad Seattle.
Well, it is supposed to be like a grungy Seattle scape, so I can definitely see it being a filtered black as opposed to like a lighter color.
Yeah, it's more of like a gray scale.
Yeah, there's definitely a gray scaling going on.
Do think there are elements of Sad Seattle Blue in this film at points.
Yeah, it's weird that
I'm glad to see it back.
Yeah, so am I. It really helps with the whole not glittering in sunlight.
Does it make it worse that it's here but not utilized everywhere when it needs to be?
A bit.
Yeah, I kind of, but I guess I prefer it in any case than it just being ignored outright, since that's how they started the franchise with it.
Yeah, it's interesting because I wrote in several occasions, oh, well, this is blatantly just direct sunlight. This is not overcast or shadows. This is sunlight. Why isn't there any glistening happening? It happened a lot more here than I noticed in the previous one that you guys were bringing up had issues, which it did. But I felt like this one had more.
Well, in the first 5 minutes, when Bella and Edward are in the field,
yeah,
the meadow, it shows direct sunlight causing Edward to have a shine on his face, and I went, okay, good to show that they're saying it has to be direct sunlight, and then that's out of the water for the film.
Well, it doesn't even survive that entire scene. It gets dropped in the meadow scene. It doesn't stay. So yeah, I don't know. They should have just gotten rid of the glisten stuff. They shouldn't have added it in the films at all. they can't stay consistent with it.
And then they continue with the follow through with the monologue of like the whatever what is it Robert Frost, is that the poet that they chose? Just like
the fire and ice.
Yeah, just Kristen Stewart reading a poem in the middle of just the most romantic stuff. It's so fun.
It's so fun.
It's so fun, guys.
Got to practice for English exam or something.
Yeah, at least it's contextualized in that. So it's prompted by something in world, which is nice. I do appreciate that.
Yeah, the parallel of the heat from Jacob and the cold from Edward. Very clever.
I guess with that and the graduation that was just discussed of writer, how do you feel about those two writing usages of how close they are to the plot and world going on being used?
Generally, I have a scale. I prefer things being diegetic, meaning that like there's reason for it to be said. Like for Jessica's speech, while it pertains heavily to what Bella's story arc is, I'm like, there's obviously a layer of that understanding for a lot of teenagers when they're graduating also feel that, and she gives good advice, and that's usually what you want in a graduation speech. So even though it pertains heavily to Bella's plot, I can also see it just coming naturally. I think the Robert Frost poem is a little bit, if I were to be, it's a little more heavy-handed, the Robert Frost poem, I think, in terms of like what it's directly alluding to. There's not as much two-way thing. Like it's an in-world thing, yes, but it's obviously specifically there for the triangle relationship that Bella is going to be involved in.
Well, it's like the connection they made with Romeo and Juliet in the last one.
True.
Yeah,
Pretty much the same thing.
yeah. It has a point, which is better than it not. But I can definitely feel like, oh yeah, this is clearly the writer's intent rather than it being more the character's intent, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So no,
Well, the
I
first
don't.
movie was just of Bella's own thoughts, right? That wasn't off of a book.
Yeah, that was just Bella's own thoughts. That being said, I don't hate either usages.
Something, I guess, along with that, something I don't hate. I like how fast this main title sequence is in this film.
Compared
It's
to the
about
previous
14,
yeah.
15 seconds.
Yeah, and then it just cuts straight to the Riley leaving the store or whatever.
Yeah.
yeah.
Because New Moon was 40 seconds and it was too long.
Well, I think this movie is supposed to be seen as more of the action thriller as opposed to the whole romantic action as the previous two were.
Yeah. I was kind of funny enough. I remember going back to. I watched a couple people reviewing the movie and like trailer reacting to this movie just on a whim because it came up on my algorithm from YouTube, and they were talking about how this was marketed for both guys who tend to prefer action and girls who prefer romance. So it was marketed to both sexes a little more equally than what the previous two films were.
And yet this made less money than the previous movie.
Interesting. I feel like Pirates at World's End kind of did the same.
I can't believe you compared it.
Why?
Romance and action.
They're basically the same movie.
Basically the same movie.
Elizabeth, Bella, carbon copies.
Oh,
Yeah.
Jacob
Johnny
Davy
Depp.
Jones?
Johnny Depp definitely sparkles in the sunlight.
Yeah, probably.
So yeah, there's definitely a bit of that. It was marketed more widely to be the actiony one. Like they have to work together. There was definitely a lot of that in the marketing. So
Gotcha.
Loque, I have a question for you.
Yeah. What's up?
Alice, what is her powers?
She can
Specifically?
see. Okay. Listen, I'm not encyclopedia of Twilight knowledge, but Alice's powers basically show her the most immediate and most likely future, and then she can transfer that to paper or word of mouth. So she gets like vision flashbacks, like flashes of the future, of like things that might happen.
And it's based off of a targeted individual's decision, right?
Yeah, or randomly. I know that she gets them just throughout the day.
Okay, so she
Randomly.
doesn't choose when she wants to do that.
Yeah, no. It just if something's happening and she thinks about something, then it'll just go, "Oh, here's a little thing for you," and then do with that what you will. That's just how her power works.
Okay. I guess a follow-up question to that, Loque. In the first film, when we only see her use her vision to draw the ballet studio,
Yeah.
in the entirety of that film, would you say Alice had more than just that one vision?
Yes.
Well, we saw her have a vision when the trio were showing up to the baseball game.
And
as
then in New Moon, she has the vision of like the clock tower and like when Edward's going to don his baby birthday suit, in front of the Volturi and just in the middle of the city. So she was able to see like the exact time and where and when. So it's not like all of the specifics, but it's definitely just Just enough to give her the facts.
But all conveniently placed.
Yeah, no, for sure. Well, it is a movie after all.
I mean, the reason I bring this
I
up,
would love to see an Alice investigation movie where it only has one clue, and she's like losing her mind with the red yarn. What could this mean?
I mean, that'd be good. Detective Alice.
Hmm.
It comes up a couple times in this film, but since we're in Act 1, one that comes to mind is with Riley at Bella's house with Charlie. That was a choice he made to go to the house, and he chose not to kill Charlie. So it seems like something within her vision capabilities, and it's also revolving around Bella, which everyone's trying to protect Bella. So it seemed like something she would have been able to see.
Yeah.
I guess so with that. But there's also a randomness factor.
I mean, it's always convenient and in helping everybody. So that seemed like something that would have been triggered there.
It's one of those things that I've been sitting on, like in my writer brain. It's like how I would want to justify it in world, what her powers are. And obviously this is not given to us in the film, so this is just me writing for them. So this is not factor into my rating or what I think of it in reality. But I think I would have tried to justify her abilities and powers as it pertains to the people she cares about. So like the people she thinks about the most being her family, including Bella. I think that's why she would get visions specifically for them. Um, it's not a perfect fix, but I think it would help explain a lot of it, the convenience stuff away, because that would it would pertain just specifically to the people she cares about.
I mean, that would still not fix the current example.
No, it doesn't fix all of it. But like I said, it would help patchwork a lot of what I guess the world building issues presented with Bella's powers. I'm sorry, Alice's powers.
Okay. Just one more clarity, because she's been a topic in the previous two films about her powers. So.
I'm sure she'll be a topic for the following two films.
Yeah, definitely.
I saw it as a slight flaw, I guess, going with that Edward didn't detect Riley was a presence until entering the home. Would Riley not have a scent somewhere outside the house?
The wind could have moved it. It's a weak excuse. Sure.
Well, technically at this point, Riley's still a new blood, so his distinction is probably fainter, maybe.
Oh, newborns have weaker sense.
I mean, that's only a theory. I don't know for sure.
See, the problem is if he's a newborn, I have bigger issue with the scene because he then wouldn't be able to control himself to prevent himself from eating Charlie.
That's what I wrote. Yep. I wrote what restraint Riley has.
I assume.
Well,
it's not really explicit.
No, Riley's been missing for over a year.
Yeah.
We learned in, I don't remember his last one, the previous one.
Oh, that's right.
But Carlisle said it takes decades for vampires to resist consuming someone. A year is not decades, so he would actually.
He's no longer a new blood.
Yeah, he's no longer a new blood, but he's not resisting the taste of blood. If that makes sense.
We see no struggle in his face or anything. He's just looming over him menacingly.
He has more control than Jasper.
Yeah, in the previous one.
That is very true.
Well, he is under Victoria's command, so I'm pretty sure that probably has something to do with it.
So wouldn't that be Victoria's command was to keep Charlie alive?
Could be. I mean, I'm pretty sure he was just there to collect intel.
And article of clothing for the scent thing later.
Yeah, he's touching everything, which is why I think I'm more okay with Edward picking up the scent as soon as he steps in the house, because he lingered in the house for a while.
He cranberried.
Yeah. Went on a panty raid.
Panty raid.
What an interesting thing is that the kind of the mixing of the two worlds going on now. Like the Cullens are hanging out with Bella's normal high school friends. They're all sitting at the table together and stuff in this film at the beginning. So I kind of like the idea that she's trying to mix the like her two worlds essentially, be one being the crazy supernatural one and one being the normal one. Um,
Yeah.
I think it's a
Uh,
good it's a good step going off of the previous films because they've been distinctly separate. I do wish we saw more of the two groups together because this is they do just like drop us in essentially to like they've been doing this forever, and that's a very very like far cry from where it started when the Bella's friend corp was like didn't want to, they were too nervous to interact with the Cullens at all.
I agree. We didn't really get a blended transition. It kind of just happens.
Yeah. And mind you, I'm fine with big transitions happening off screen. I think that I would have preferred this one, something before it, I guess, than just being dropped in. There's always something to a character having to be transitioned into the place that the writers or director wants them to. Picking on Jake Skywalker again from The Last Jedi.
Now, Ryder, you saw the extended version of Eclipse for this, correct?
Yes.
Coverage. Loque, have you seen the extended version?
Yes, I have.
Okay. Crimson, I take it you and I
Stated.
both saw theatrical? Okay.
Yeah.
Is there a little bit to show how Alice got to the launch table, or does she literally just appear?
In the extended version, I remember her walking up to the lunch table and sitting down with Jasper.
Okay. So that is shown. Okay. In theatrical, she's just at the table and just says, I want to do a party.
Oh, really? She just teleports to the table?
Yeah. Jasper's sitting down and she's already sitting there. Through a whole conversation of Bella and I guess Edward doesn't speak, but Bella just listening in and talking about the graduation with Jessica and Mike.
Yeah. I don't. Yeah, I think it's just a couple seconds that are cut because she sits down right before Jasper. It's like Jasper's following right behind her.
I didn't know if you caught the same thing with that, Crimson.
No. No, I did not.
Dokie doke. Well, with that, let's go to Crimson for a point.
All right. So we get a little bit of, I don't know if it was like news, radio, whatever, talking about murders and disappearances in Seattle. And I was just thinking, how are they not discovering vampires at this point? All the people are like screaming when they're getting murdered. People would be looking out their windows, seeing that. There's probably police in the vicinity. They're leaving bodies of people that have been getting eaten. So the news didn't say a group of cannibals or anything. We see at least one vampire kill another one. So there's a vampire body in the middle of everything too. It just seems very sloppy how they approached the vampire army in the city. It should be a bigger issue than they let on in here.
Well, it's animal attacks.
Well, not in the city.
If I remember correctly, I think Charlie is reading a paper at the beginning of the movie, saying like brash murders in Seattle.
I think so.
He's reading a paper. There's some sort of audio thing. Like I said, I didn't know if it was a news or radio bit talking about murders, disappearances.
It would be interesting to see.
It just seemed mishandled.
Yeah, I'm in agreement. I think it's not a perfect fix, but one thing they could have done was the Volturi could have been exercising some political powers of some sort. We don't really know the extent of their reach, but it would have been interesting to show that they had some influence of what was being reported, especially since they are non-committal about letting everything play out in this film.
Yeah, if they had, like, people were saying people were missing. There weren't deaths, like there were no bodies or anything, just missing people. And when we get the shot of the Volturi over watching Riley and the other vampires and deciding whether or not to intervene, that could have been a part where they're like, all right, we're tired of cleaning up after them. What do we want to do? That would imply they've been taking the bodies and cleaning the areas and stuff. And that's a quick, easy fix for that as well.
Yeah. and it would show also I guess, give us some insight into what the Vatari are thinking.
Yeah.
More insight. I like the fact that Charlie grounded Bella.
Kind of. He gave her an out.
Yeah, he gave her an out, but it's kind of implied that she's been grounded for a couple weeks. You know,
Well, since New Moon.
Yeah, since New Moon. So I kind of like that it's been. She's clearly been grounded for some time, so giving her an out seems something like Charlie would do, because he doesn't want to keep punishing her. But I like the fact that he did that because she abandoned him pretty much when his friend died.
When did New Moon end? Is there like a date?
I don't recall.
My guess
Was
is it ended during a new moon on the cycle, but
Wow, funny.
Well, they had the dance thing, but I don't know when the dance took place.
The dance was prom, right?
That was the end of the first movie.
Yeah.
Was that?
That's the end of the first movie. The end of the second movie is she is the Volturi. When they meet the Volturi for the first time, and she has to leave.
Yeah, I don't remember any time.
Somewhere late winter.
Yeah, I remember. I think the last scene is the marriage proposal, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, in the woods. But that doesn't really say timeline.
I think it would be a little after winter.
What is she grounded from? She's not grounded from meeting Edward, because she does that anyways, and he knows it.
Well, she has a curfew.
Treating Charlie poorly.
Yeah, she has a curfew as far as.
No, I get why she's grounded. I didn't know what the grounding was.
Oh, I think
no TV. Just
Charlie's like, this time right on the dot, so he's brown nosing.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's what I took with that line.
Yeah, she has to be home by a certain time, so she's not allowed to stay out late with her boyfriend or do anything of that nature.
And it's only of Edward. When it's with Jacob, Charlie's, that's good.
Well, yeah, because he's best buds with
Billy.
Billy.
Yeah, which makes sense. I think Charlie has bias towards Billy and Jacob in that sense.
Oh, I'd agree. Don't see Charlie having a game day with Rainer beer with Carlisle.
She got home at 4. Okay, so I guess it would be she gets off school and goes straight home, and she has to stay there then, right? The punishment is staying home after school. Would that be the grounding?
On weekdays, I guess, yeah. There's also times it's just showing, like when Jacob arrives, she just gets on his bike and goes. Like she ditches school.
That's right. Well, and Jake flips on a dime there. He's upset with her. I have nothing to talk about. She gets on bike. He's smiling and super happy. All right, let's go.
It was an instantaneous flip, which leads to, I think, one of my larger issues with Jacob that's set up in this film going into the next one.
I'll say the Jacob introduction in this movie was far better than New Moon. Because New Moon,
he just pops up at the campus.
Yeah, he just pops up and he's speaking to Bella, and all we see is like his left arm before showing him. This one is like hot boy. He's here, like in the crowd of school.
He's also there to deliver a message explicitly too, which helps. So he has a reason to be here outside of Bella, because he shows up after their hunt for Victoria.
Yes.
I totally forgot. One thing that bothered me is when Jasper sits down at the table with Alice and the group. Jasper's commenting on about them finishing high school again.
Like that was funny.
In front of the human friends. It's funny. I think it's a problem.
It's a problem?
After all, how many times do you graduate?
Why do you see it as a problem?
Oh, was it maybe I misheard. He says he said he commented about them finishing high school again. Which,
No.
All right.
That's somebody's thing.
All right. Then I misheard. In which case, not a problem. I like the joke.
Yeah, I have it. After all, how many times we gonna graduate high school?
Yeah.
Is the line.
If that's the exact quote, then I have no issue.
Okay. Because I saw that as both like cheeky towards Edward and Alice and Bella. They understand what he means, but also to Mike and Eric and Jessica, they're like, oh yeah,
Yeah, enjoy
only
yourselves.
one.
Enjoy your graduation. Yeah. Okay, I don't have an issue with that. That's just me mishearing, and I'm totally okay with it.
Loque, you got another point to go to?
When they enter the like on the chase with Victoria, and Emmett jumps over the stream to chase after, and then the wolves block him, and he like basically breaks their trust. That whole cinematic chase scene, I don't know. I think it was really cool.
I agree. I have issues with the chase scene. That being said, I think that was the first time I actually. I think that was. I was really invested, I guess. And I was surprised that I was invested.
Yeah.
I agree. I also like it. I think this is the best use to show super speed.
I was just about to say, I think this is the best visual of the running in the films so far. Just from a technical standpoint, it looked more realistic. The others
Doesn't
looked
use
horrible.
the
Blur effect,
effect,
this
or the
has some
second one of
blur.
the slow-mo normal run look.
This one's more motion blur of the movement. The other one's artificial blur to emulate movement. This one just looks cleaner.
Yeah, I like that it was I think the dynamicism of the scene, like they both know that the werewolves aren't crossing into the Cullens territory and the Cullens aren't crossing into their territory, so it's cool to see Victoria kind of use that border to her advantage when trying to get away
Yeah.
from both groups. So that shows, I think, intelligence on her part. I think
If Victoria was in a boat going down the river, who could touch her?
I think it's neutral territory, the river. So I think they can go into the river, but they can't cross it, if that makes sense.
Okay, the river's no man's land.
Yeah, that would be my guess based on the scene.
Well, did Emmett touch the other side then, or was he?
Yeah.
He
He
was
did
grabbed
step
out of the
foot.
air.
He stepped foot on the land, and then he was pulled away by, I think it was Paul.
Yeah, the leader.
Yeah.
Well, no,
Yeah, it wasn't
no,
Sam.
It was Paul.
Sam's the black one.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, and it wasn't Seth. He's too young.
No, they said it was Paul.
We love ourselves some Boo Boo Stewart, okay?
Mhm.
Seth is my boy. I love some Boo Boo Stewart.
Oh, good to
Seth
know.
fan. We'll get more of Seth later.
Yeah.
They
Yes.
so I do like the action sequence as a whole. I think the only thing that bugged me was that the werewolf was more focused on keeping the Cullens out of their territory than chasing Victoria down. And
Agreed.
And the fact that there were originally two wolves, I have no idea where the other one went. They could have chased after Victoria, but we don't see them do that. It just kind of vanished, so Victoria gets away.
This just shows that they're not together. They're not a team yet.
Yeah.
Which helps for later on in the movie. But I feel like just having the Rocky like companionship between the two. I want to say teams, but they're not teams.
I think the only fix I wanted for the scene, because I agree, showing the tension between the Cullens and the werewolves is set up for what happens in the rest of the film. I think the fix is because they already showed a second werewolf running alongside Paul. I think all it needed to do was show that werewolf took off after Victoria. So like they're still doing their job instead of just stopping the Cullens, if that makes sense.
Do you think the hive mind stopped it? Like the mind of just Paul made them all turn back?
That
they still have independent.
That would be worse.
They still have independent thoughts.
Yeah, because they share thoughts, but they don't necessarily.
Unless Sam says it as the alpha.
Yeah.
Then they have to listen.
Yeah, they still have individuality. It's just the fact that they share each other's thoughts is what helps their teamwork. So it would have been a good way to show how seamless the werewolves work together because they're a cohesive unit. In the same way the Cullens work together, would be within themselves. If one werewolf was shown chasing off after Victoria while the other one stopped and like made sure the Cullens backed off their territory. Like it would have been cool to see that, I guess, seamlessness in the action scene.
It would have been, yeah, that would have been a good detail if Jacob was the one to continue after Victoria, because his mind's focused on Bella's protection, while the other werewolves are more on the the truce or
The treatment.
treaty.
Yeah.
But overall, it was a really good scene. I was definitely invested in the world building that they accomplished here in the action sequence and the characters involved as well.
And I guess if any of the vampires are gonna jump over, it's Emmett. But what is Emmett? Emmett's supposed to be like the buff, strong guy
What
in
is
the
Emmett?
Cullen group.
He's the
Yeah, but every time we see him in any of the movies thus far, he just gets beat by somebody. He's
He's a cocky
nothing.
jock.
Hey, watch
Oh.
your profanity.
Oh, sorry, he's a jockey cock. Oh wait, no.
Nice.
Okay. I don't know. Emmett's just a waste for me. They have the opportunity to make him a character, and every opportunity they don't do anything with him.
Oh, as you know, they put a lot into Rosalie and Jasper.
Yeah, they get
And you want
flashbacks.
more into every Cullen?
I mean, Emmett, I think.
I think
I don't need more of the wife or anything, but
Yeah.
Emmett.
We get a lot. We
Yeah.
do get more of Emmett than we do of Carlisle's wife. So I also would like more. I don't know if that I would be an objective flaw for me though. I think he's still. I guess he's still effectively used as a caricature, even if it's not an in-depth character, I suppose.
I don't know how I feel with that being a pacing thing. If we get a third backstory,
I don't think it's really needed.
Oh no, I don't need him to be developed within this film. But it's just because he's been a consistent background character. I'm surprised we don't even get throwaway lines for him specifically.
It's true, but like Sprink said, he's just muscle. You know, he's not really supposed to be a character, I suppose.
do we even know who turned him?
It's not even
Was it
good
Carla
muscle.
or
The only
I think Carlisle turned
Rosalie
Cullen.
finds Emmett after her murder rampage to avenge herself from Royce.
I think Emmett might be the before Jasper, but like after Alice and Edward. So he would fall right in the middle of like the Cullens the Cullen clan as they were gathered together, I suppose. Because it's implied that Emmett's been what's helping Rosalie get through all her problems.
well, what's the time frame on that? Because you said that's before the Civil War. But Rosalie's
No, before they joined the Cullens. Because remember, Jasper was the newest Cullen at the start of the series. So not necessarily new, not necessarily
the newest vampire.
Turn.
Yeah. We don't really know when Jasper joined the Cullens.
I like a detail at the 4-minute 47 mark where Bella and Edward are in the meadow of Bella. You can still see the bite scar that James left her on her arm.
I think it's
because I don't remember seeing that at all in New Moon.
I mean,
no.
The topic of
yeah, I was gonna say no. Jacob specifically points the scar out in New Moon.
Yeah, the topic of scars were brought up in New Moon in regards to Edward's neck scar never being shown. And I said it would be shown later that scars stay with vampires and don't get healed because of Jasper. So they're not very consistent with that.
That debunks Ryder's attractive scar healing thing.
Yep. Like I said, it was like I said that's something that would be in place only for the first few films and would get debunked later.
Inconsistent. Shocker.
Ryder, point from you.
Sure. I like I guess I like the introduction of more werewolf lore, even if it's different. The idea that werewolves imprint on, or their concept of imprinting. Um, it's going to pose some problems that I have with the story later, but I think the introduction here is good enough to kind of explain Sam's situation ship with Leah and Emily.
Oh, for sure.
And it also obviously the point of it is supposed to be a direct parallel to what Bella is going to be experiencing for her majority of this film.
Yeah.
Do you think that helps strengthen or damage the character of Jacob knowing the thoughts and everything of a love triangle going on with his attempt of what he's doing with Bella?
Well, they all like make fun of him when Bella calls him, and they're like, "Oh, we know that you've been thinking about when she's gonna call."
When she's going to call, should I pick up? Should I pick up
Yeah.
and hang up?
Yeah. So I think it adds to his character. It's not like it completely completely takes away from anything.
If I were to read into it, I think it helps strengthen Jacob because he sees that their relationship, how Sam has managed both relationships and it's still functional.
Yeah.
I think that adds to Jacob's feeling as to how they might be able to get it to work in this instance too.
Okay.
Even if he wants Bella to himself.
Okay, that helps me with, I think, what I thought was my least favorite scene in the film.
Which is
I don't know if it's in this act, but when Jacob forcefully kisses Bella.
I kissed Bella and she broke her hand, punching my face.
Yeah.
It was a
Okay,
complete
that is this act. Yeah.
misunderstanding. Yes.
Um,
How does that fix it?
That's after Bella gets back from Jacksonville. You don't have that's you said the act ends with Rosalie's backstory, right?
Rosalie's backstory, yeah.
Yeah. No, I'm pretty sure
yeah, that's before then because she's
shortly
at the
after.
house getting her hand patched up, right?
Yeah,
Yep.
checking my notes, it is before, so.
Yep.
Yeah, that was my least
Why does
favorite.
that better, that scene?
Because it shows the mentality of Jacob's, to me, trying to break the triangle of Bella and Edward and not being stuck in the same situation that Sam's going through.
Well, yeah, he doesn't really see himself in a full triangle. That's the audience seeing the triangle. He doesn't care about Edward. He just cares about Bella. With the Sam triangle, that triangle actually cares about each other to some degree. They try to keep things cordial. Jacob doesn't want to keep the triangle. He wants to kick Edward out. So it's a pretty different dynamic between the two.
And obviously there's a parallel here running between Jacob and Edward. They're both very possessive. I
mean, the snow tent talk really helps that then.
Oh yeah. The snow tent really helps. But I'm saying before that we have Edward breaking Bella's car so she can't go see Jacob because that's what at Charlie's suggestion. And we have the alternative here where Jacob is kind of wants to mark his territory. So there's instances of both of them being really, really possessive.
And that was more towards Alice's random visions. She saw Bella chose to go visit Jacob, so Edward came to ruin the car.
Yeah.
That had no dire consequences, but she saw that.
Yeah.
I also think, I don't know if it's my least favorite shot, but the pan of the car of Bella trying to start the car to pan back after the halfway mark to show Edward in the car, I thought was so cheesy.
It's I guess. It was predictable. You knew what was going to happen. But
yeah.
I don't think that makes that bad or anything.
I think it would have been cooler if it was all the way around. Rather than stopping and then going back.
Oh, you mean like a 360 camera movement?
Like 180. Like it started on Bella's side car door and then went to the halfway of the car and then it went back to Bella so you could see Edward's face.
Oh,
I think
actually
I would have preferred it if it went all the way so it's like the back of Edward's car head so you can still see him and get Bella's reaction out of it.
Funny enough, I actually did it the opposite way in my head. If for a 180 shot, you'd start on Bella and then you kind of go around to the front, so you pan like to the front of the engine and then you keep following that pan all the way around to see Edward in the car with her.
I guess I worded it incorrectly. That's exactly what I mean. Yeah.
Okay. Same page. Woo.
Look at my notes. Oh yeah, dude, guys. I'm glad, like what Ryder said, glad to see that like Mike and Eric and Jessica and Angela are still around. But you know who's not around? You know who's not there?
I already forgot his name.
Scumbag Tyler.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
He's probably locked up.
Probably got arrested by this point for vehicular manslaughter.
Look, if you don't know, in the first film, I thought that Tyler committed sexual assault, physical assault, and attempted murder on Bella.
Oh, yikes. Wait, why? Why all of those?
He kisses her in the lunchroom before introducing himself. He throws a Twizzler at her in the parking lot, and then he almost rams his car into her before Edward stops it.
It was wet pavement. Come on. Can't blame the guy from that.
Manslaughter at worst. It was not murder.
Knowing the layout of that parking lot, he drove past Bella to turn. So he knew she was there.
Turn out of the way of the car that was pulling out of the parking lot.
I think you're seeing it all wrong there, Sprinks.
Also, throwing a Twizzler is not assault.
Yeah.
If it was a red
kissing
vine,
thing,
maybe
I
I would
was enough to
consider it.
bruise.
I can
That's
give you the
physical
kiss. No. Then I would have a problem that you can throw a Twizzler strong enough to bruise. Then I'd have a problem with that.
But hey, he's not here.
I mean, he wasn't really a character in the first place. For me. Ryder said he grew throughout the movie. I didn't really.
He grew throughout the movie. He had his arc, and that was the end of it. Actually, I think it was Cass who suggested the arc.
Maybe.
I know you certainly agreed with it. I don't know if you brought it up. But...
Yeah, I agreed that he went on an arc, but I also, like I said, it was just it's a small, minor thing. It wasn't like a big, game-changing character arc that he went on. It was just something minor that a background character went through.
Look, question for you.
Yes.
What do you think Edward used as precautions from his plane flight to Florida with Bella? To hide being a vampire.
Let's go with the classic superhero camouflage. Sunglasses, the baseball cap.
And not a window seat.
A shawl.
Edward's a aisle guy. Come on.
I don't know. With that.
I don't know.
He traveled at night.
I think they make a point of. I think they make a point of not showing any of that.
Yeah, it's a lot of that's fixed if they just traveled at night. They could have had a night flight, and they could have had.
they could have.
it never shows the flight; it just shows the next day in Florida. So
they could have ran there from Forks to Jacksonville. That's possible.
Oh, just Spider Monkey all the way.
Yeah, Spider Monkey all the way to Florida. Why not? Or Arizona.
Road trip. Except running trip, I guess.
Well, New Moon, I don't think it was ever discussed with us of like how Edward got to like Brazil and then Italy. It's just like, I guess it worked for him. It just seemed, it popped in my head more with this one because of Bella's presence.
Yeah, the only thing we mentioned like that in New Moon was that I brought up the timing of travel. Edward being there and then Alice and Bella meeting there. They would have beaten him. But yeah, just a knife fight. I think that's the easiest solution for that. For this one. All right, let's see. I got a dumb Bella thing. What? Maybe I'm reading too much into it. I know. The scene where they're kind of talking to each other and Edward's talking about his intentions of keeping her soul. And she responds with, I thought it would be my not being able to feel my warm skin or my smell. I'd smell different. And like, are you? It didn't feel like she was playing that off jokey. It felt like she was being literal. Like that was her actual thoughts.
I think she was.
Am I misreading that?
Yeah.
Okay.
But I don't think Edward cares about that whatsoever.
No, he doesn't. I'm talking about how stupid she is. Because he's made it quite clear up to this point from the other movies in here, his intentions are not about the warmth of her skin or her scent. It's clearly revolving around her soul. That's been stated. So it was a very just stupid line by her if she was being literal, which I think she was.
I'm in agreement. I think she was being literal, and it's just a lame excuse because it's not at all what Edward's been saying. And they've been together now for almost a year. Actually, well,
yeah,
as of
because we started
graduation,
at the beginning of school year. So that's a school year, so half a year, I guess.
Well, March was the beginning of the first film, and I don't know how long it was till they dated, but it was still within the school year. And then all the way up to now, because I guess it's after winter, so spring. So about a
Have
year.
we seen her in one or two school years?
She started junior of March junior year. That's why there was the junior prom they went to at the end of the first movie.
Okay.
And then we
And
skipped
she's
over summer,
graduating
start New
senior.
Moon on her birthday, which we know from this movie is September 14th? September 13th is her birthday. That's where New Moon starts. Then we go through that cycle of October, November, December. And now this movie, which starts with that meadow being pretty flourished. So I guess early spring.
Yeah, about a year, give or take.
And now I think it's 2009. So
Yeah.
I caught at 15 minutes and 51 seconds. Alice says a line of "on your left," showing that Eclipse did it first.
I'm sure it was never uttered before Eclipse either.
Not to
Get
my
the
knowledge.
reference.
I didn't
Do
research.
you want to tell the audience what you're referencing?
Yes, "on
there?
your left" is from Captain America: Winter Soldier, of Cap running by Falcon,
And Endgame.
and Endgame.
Yeah, but that's a
well.
payoff, and I don't.
That's a
Endgame
reference
is
to
a
Winter
payoff.
He's my Captain America.
How dare you? That's a different topic. Different
Do
debate.
you want to open that can of worms now?
Not on this podcast.
No, not here. We have to cover that to open that can of worms.
I love that Disney Plus show. It's my favorite.
Oh no! Moving on.
Blasphemy.
All right, yeah, I can see why we need to move on. It's a very small thing. I like that Charlie tries to break up Edward and Jacob getting in each other's faces after he kissed Bella, and I like the fact that Jacob just fesses up. There's something to add to that, even if it's I like the fact that he was being honest, and I like that Charlie is surprised.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was like a surprise.
Bella is so accident prone that Charlie was like, "Cool, it makes sense."
Maybe. You were saying, Crimson?
I really loved how Jacob just owned up to it. And you could tell Charlie was surprised, but I don't know if I read into it, but he also seemed kind of happy that it happened. Not that the punching stuff happened, but that there's a potential progress in the direction he's leaning. Don't know if I read into that from his face expression, but
What, Bella
That's
doesn't
how I
like
read it.
boys? Yay.
no, the Charlie, the way I read it, saw progress towards Jacob. If they're at the point where they're close enough to kiss, even if she didn't like the advancement, to him, that's still progress in a direction. Because he knows Jacob long enough that if he's kissing her, they're probably close enough to where it's not out of the blue.
Yeah. This is the movie I think where I felt the excuses to rip off of Jacob's shirt more so than the previous one, because the previous ones you could kind of explain a lot of his shirtless moments away. Not as much in this one. They're clearly doing.
Edward's joke was pretty good.
Yeah, help him find his shirt. Yeah.
Did he ever wear a shirt?
There was a line I didn't I didn't quite like of sense when they're at the school and Jacob's there on his motorcycle and Edwards asks, if I asked you to stay in the car, would you? And he doesn't ask her. She just gets out and they go, I forget what he says in response, but like, not surprised or like, go figure, like something like that.
Yeah, he's like, of course
Yeah.
not. He just accepts it.
Yeah. But he didn't ask her.
He didn't have to. That in asking that question is
that is the question.
Yeah, that's a double entendre of speaking. He was intentionally asking her the question without directly asking her the question.
Yeah.
Okay.
I guess I'll go into the Rosalie backstory stuff because I do have quite a bit to say about this. So I'm gonna get out what I think Rosalie's backstory does well. It was prompted by Bella and Emmett's quick exchange in the house, which is good. Diegetic, meaning it doesn't come out of nowhere. We have a valid reason for the exposition, therefore. It does explain character information for Rosalie and does, in part, inform us of like her disposition towards being a Cullen and why she, I guess, is most different slash downer character of the group. However, it doesn't fully explain her disposition towards Bella outside of her believing she's chosen wrong because she will eliminate herself simply possibilities, which leads to, I think, one of the crucial facets when you're including backstories in your scripts or scenes that should inform you about characters' disposition and the other characters listening in on that exposition. We learn about Bella something we already knew, and she's a main character. So to be perfectly clear, I think this scene is average. I don't think it's great. And for comparison, I did Kung Fu Panda, so I'm going to focus on Shifu. She was a character from Kung Fu Panda who is extremely close relationship with the villain of the film, Tai Lung, in which their backstory is elaborated in 2 scenes, but for the sake of this, I'm going to focus on the backstory told to Po from Tigress. By having Shifu being the integral character entirely absent, it brings us focus squarely on the ancillary characters, being the Furious Five, including Tigress. Much like Rosalie, they both function as a side character. It accomplishes a valid reason for the exposition. The other characters in the Furious Five tiptoe around the subject because it's not supposed to be spoken. But Tigress points out that Po should hear because he's choosing to stay. And characters were already angling to whisper about it from the start. Thus, we have a plethora of reasons of why the backstory should be told, and can be exposited to us and the audience within the context of the setting. We learn about the character exposition from the backstory. It deepens our understanding of Tigress's frustration. Tigress values a degree of honor and sees Po as an affront to that honor. We also see that Shifu, whom she looked up to as a father figure, never got the same adoration that Tai Lung did because of what happened. Not to mention, we learn in the backstory flashback a great deal about Oogway and Shifu, while Emmett really only gets a passing mention in the backstory, helping to improve Rosalie's disposition. So, what do we learn about the other characters in the scene? We learn that the main character, Po, is in over his head, and he's also intimidated by Tigress. While it is cut short, he also feels a great deal of shame for what his presence is putting Shifu through. And we learn from what the Five think of the story and their fear about telling it and how they're all listening to Tigress recount it, which helps make her a figure of authority in terms of being a ringleader of the group. And we also learn more jokingly that Mantis has trouble with panda acupuncture. Meanwhile, we really only learn that Bella loves Edward completely and totally rationally, which is not really new. So the reason I point all this out is to kind of, at this point, the film had earned, I think, some like proper form of critique by punching a little bit above its weight, because I do think this is the best film in the saga thus far. So I wanted to give a thorough breakdown of what I think writers really wanted to be a very important, heavy scene. And it felt like appropriate compared to Kung Fu Panda because I think they accomplished more with their backstory scene. And so that being said, I don't think the scene is bad. I think it's perfectly average. Just not, great.
That was a lot more than what I wrote for this scene.
Yep.
I wrote,
Ditto.
why is this not a movie? I would rather watch the vampire avenging in a gown movie than this movie. Uh, Far more interesting. But I also wrote at the end of it, Bella talked about she wants nothing more than just Edward. He's the top of her list. And I just wrote, why do you have to turn then? You have Edward right now. You would have him in the future.
She wants him forever. I think that's pretty much what we're supposed to take away.
I guess.
I know. I'm not, like I said, I want more than that as well, but I think that's just what my base reading of what their relationship is like up to this point.
Well, wow, that was a lot more than I thought would be to that scene for you. Interesting.
Yeah, I got hit with a bout of inspiration because I think I liked the scene. My issue is what I wanted to like it more, hence why I dove into like the two backstory scenes as a comparative tissue, because I think the Kung Fu Panda backstory scene, at least the one I chose to focus on, is better in terms of incorporating all the ancillary characters and their reactions and importance to the scene. And for me, it's like we learn nothing about Bella. And one of the things you have to do, because you have a really, really limited time when you're working on your scripts, story, what have you, is you can't just exposit for no reason. Like I said, they gave us a reason to exposit, but I was hoping to get something from Bella, learn something about her and how she reacts to Rosalie's story. So that's one of the main reasons why I dove into that with as much detail as I did, because I did like the scene quite a bit. And when I tend to like something, I like to see how it works and functions in comparison to things that are better and things that are worse.
Okie doke. Loque, do you have anything in regards to either what Ryder said or just of the Rosaline backstory itself?
I mean, I think Ryder hit it right on the head there. It's just a very cool, like kind of mob boss, kind of, I don't know, black and white storytelling of her past, and it's super cool seeing how vampires were dealt with throughout the years, as opposed to just focusing on, you know, the Roman era, or the current era. Like it just,
Yeah.
I, don't know, I like that.
Yeah. One of the things I think I was also I'm also enjoying a lot of the flashbacks, mostly because it's interesting to, as you put, Loke, to see the vampires in like era appropriate clothing and era appropriate locations, but mostly, and kind of seeing how they play with it a little bit.
For sure.
I just took away from it that Rosalie is a Team Jacob fan.
That's fair. I guess a fair interpretation. I do have a question though. Does this bring up an issue with Carlisle? Because he's
How
the
so?
one that turned Rosalie. Would he be willing to let Rosalie? I mean, granted, she could have been a newborn when she did all this, but is it still within character for Carlisle to let her do that?
Let her do it? I don't know, but to save her life, because she was pretty much beaten to an introvert.
Carlisle saving her life, I don't have an issue with. That makes perfect sense for him. I'm talking more about her rampage.
That's a good point. They should have addressed that. She should have said, even though Carlisle was beating me down, saying you can't do this, I went through it anyways and hunted them all down. Something to the like that would fix that. But yeah, that's not even addressed at all, and I think that might.
Or even just say like, I informed Carlisle there will be no life to save because she's going to kill them all. She's not like turning them into new bloods or leaving them alive and just suffer. Yeah, like Carlisle is like, don't feel guilty because they're just going to die.
I mean, he values life, so
he does.
He probably still would have been opposed to. All right, get your revenge, kill them. He probably still wouldn't have liked that.
Yeah, the reason I asked is because it would have been very interesting to see, or at least hear a reference to how Carlisle and she reconciled over it.
Would this slightly be a mess for Rosalie? Like something that's constantly going to be on her mind until it's cleaned? Because as we've seen with New Moon, it seems like Carla is very big on like your mess, your actions, your choice with Edward and Bella.
It could be.
Well, it would be his choice. He would have to tackle with that. He turned her, and then she went on a killing spree. That's his mistake at that point.
Oh,
And
that's just if they
he
never
would
had
have
a
to address
discussion.
it. Yeah, you're going with
That's the
having
one
people
detail
learn
left out.
and fix their mistakes. But
Yeah,
that would be
if there-
Carlisle's mistake.
It wouldn't be a mistake if he had a talk with Rosalie. That we'd never
But
see.
we don't get that. So
Yeah.
as of what we have now, going with that lens of mistakes, it's his mistake. So I definitely think something should have been mentioned, and that is negative that it is not in here.
Yeah,
I'll go with that.
The reason it is a minor negative for me is because Carlisle is established to be someone who values life to a point, to a high degree, which is why he's a doctor in the first place. And since he is the one that turned Rosalie, I needed, I guess, an explanation as to why he would, be turned loose. Because I think that would work in your case, Springs, with you bringing up that it's her mess to fix. But I'm not sure that's enough in this instance, purely because we don't really know the full context of what happened between her and Carlisle for this to happen. I guess it's a minor negative for me.
I just know whether without Carlisle's, I guess not approval, but whether or not there was a conversation or not, we see the result of what occurred.
Yeah. So obviously again, I don't necessarily need Carlisle's input on this. I would very much value it because of, I guess, how opposed this dichotomy would be against what he values. But I understand that the point of it is to kind of shortcut to why Rosalie is the way she is.
Okie doke.
All right, I'm going to bring up, I guess, a tough topic, but I'll do it.
Oh boy.
The Jacob kiss. And a potential thing for me is Bella's punch justified. What do you guys think?
Yes.
I'm thinking on it. I'm neutral. I can definitely see it being a rational reaction. But I think from a character standpoint, from Bella specifically, I don't know if she would punch Jacob because they have a long history of being friends. She could still react viscerally to it. I don't know if the punch is necessarily in character for me.
What do you think, Loque?
Definitely in character. I don't see any other way that would fulfill Bella better. Like, I feel like the punch is just like all of her emotions about it just enacted in one quick action, as opposed to like, you, Taylor Lautner, you can't kiss me.
Yeah.
I kiss you, and I just feel like I'm kissing a shark. It's disgusting.
I mean, like, there's definitely the confused feelings that Bella is having, which can definitely help feed into support the idea that she would punch Jacob in response. I feel like you were going somewhere with this, Crimson, though.
Yeah, because I had a feeling what Sprinks' answer was. I didn't know about the other two. For me, it seemed too much because the things that lead up to it, Edward Jacob goes in for the kiss. There's a lead up. She sees he's doing it, and they go for like 3 kisses. It's whatever, 3 kisses, and she's not pushing him at this point. She got some discomfort in her face, but she's not doing anything. Then she shoves him. I'm like, okay, she's not feeling it. That pushing makes sense. The punch to me is too much at that point because she didn't outright just push him away immediately. she had thoughts when kissing him. So going past the shove, because he wasn't forcing himself on her, because if he did, she would have pushed immediately, or he would have held on to her longer or something. It wasn't grapey. So the punches seemed too much for what we actually see in the scene that's depicted. To me.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. I'm not, like I said, I'm neutral about it because, like I said, from the beginning, I'm like, I can definitely see that being the reaction. But you bring up a valid point that she could have said, been adamantly against the kiss from the get go, and then that would have probably justified the punch if Jacob kept going in that instance. But the fact that she was accepting of it at the, she wasn't fighting it. Accepting might not be the right word.
Yeah,
I guess I can
that's
give
how
my
I view
counter on it
Mhm.
of why I think it's valid. I think out of the two of Edward and Jacob, Jacob's the tough guy, and is seen that way. But Jacob's also the friend, not the boyfriend new relationship with Edward, but someone she's known for a while because in the first movie she comes back and it's like, oh, you remember Jacob? You knew him when you were younger. And as that friend, and also seeing him horse around and play rough and wrestle with all the other, the wolves, I guess, from New Moon. I don't know how much more out of screen there was, but just seeing all this stuff, it's like he can clearly take a punch. It's a good point, Crimson, you bring up that she didn't just immediately shove him away, and there was like this 3-kiss thing. I think that's also to go with New Moon of how much she's saying she cares for him and loves him, but it's always as a friend. It's this "I love you as a friend" situation. And when he does that, she's caught up in the moment of, oh, that this is this, until a realization of, oh, this is not right. This is against Edward. She knows he's a werewolf at this point, so it's like, I guess he can take it, the punch. Um, so that's how I see it. As such, she didn't know she was going to break her hand, and I think she thought he would have like a normal human, head turn or something reaction to a punch, and not a cinder block of a jaw.
Well, okay, going off the what you put out, the core of the punch, at least from what it sounds like, is during the kiss she realizes this isn't the direction she wants. Why the punch? Because at that point it's her action. It's not because of what Jacob did. It's because she realized that feels worse on Bella if she punches him because she made a choice of, oh, I'm not feeling this, and it's not Jacob's action, it's her action.
I think it's both actions, of course, but she's putting blame onto him because he enacted it. It is not entirely his because she didn't initially shove.
We get at the end-ish area where he's like, how much effort it took for her to actually acknowledge the feelings she has for him, right? And she owns up to having them. They just aren't as strong as they are for Edward.
It's not good enough.
So the part that you're like, oh, she only sees him as a friend, I think is directly countered by that. And that she actually does have romantic feelings for him. She just has more romantic feelings towards Edward.
Oh, so in this instance, you think there's romantic feelings because of her hesitance?
I think there's romantic feelings in the previous one, New Moon.
Oh, in New Moon?
When he's feeling a void in her heart, as she put it, or a hole. Not close enough. Analogy.
And she's suppressing it.
Yeah. I think what Kearns is trying to highlight is that there is blatantly romantic feelings already there. She's just in denial.
Yeah.
And not
as she put it. Oh, good. Go ahead.
Not the river in Egypt.
Yeah,
yes,
exactly. Not that one.
Yeah, precisely. No Crocs in this one.
Nope.
Yeah,
hey,
I guess that's.
It looks like you're on the wrong side of the river. Sorry.
The river.
Different movie.
A great movie.
Hey, Emmett, looks like you're on the wrong side of the stream.
Hey, nice.
Hey, yeah.
Brought it right back.
Perfect. Okay, well, that was my point for the kissing stuff.
Okay. I have an issue with something that showed a problem to me. Because in the previous movie is not. I don't remember seeing much detail on a new moon. I know it happens, but just didn't click. In this one, when what was it, Leah? Yeah,
Leia.
when
Yeah.
Leia leaves, after like Bella get in there and they're like, "Oh, Jacob's been thinking about you," and she turns into a wolf. We clearly see her shorts rip apart.
Yep.
Okay.
Oh,
He's talking
Where
about
do these clothes
inconsistency of
come back when they
transforming.
turn back? Do they grow pants?
We brought up this topic in New Moon, the
I
clothing.
don't remember seeing the
Well,
pants
I brought it
being
up.
like destroyed in New Moon.
No, we talked about how the shorts were like a catalyst for transformation, because why else would they still be there when they transform back? But there's no answer. They're inconsistent.
Okay. Like in New Moon, I think they like phased like into the body through a transformation. Which to me, I'm like, okay, so when they come back, they got the pants on. But to this,
when Jacob jumps over Bella to protect her from Paul in the last one,
his
his
pants
clothes
ripped.
blow off. His whole outfit blows off. But of course, when we see him again in the cabin, he has his shorts on again. So we see a clothes explosion.
they go to Costco for bulk orders of pants and tank tops because they're just how much they go through them.
Loque, what do you think on this matter?
I think that in the Twilight universe, I feel like clothing is transferable. Do it for
Magic
the
clothes.
plot. Do it for the
Oh,
plot.
do it for the plot.
Yeah.
It's like an RPG. They're stored in the inventory slot.
Yeah, exactly. It's
Okay,
just a
so
cinematic of it ripping. It's not actually doesn't actually rip.
so the transformation gives a
There's a
particle
little
effect of
pouch. There's a
clothes
little
ripping.
pouch under all that fur. Little pouch with all that fur. Their clothes neatly folded.
Okay. So if they had stuff in their pockets upon transforming into a werewolf, would it still be there?
They enter the Phantom Zone.
It's in their wolf stomachs.
Yep.
Okay, so if they put a shirt rolled up in the back pocket of their shorts when they transform, when they come back out, would they have a shirt to put on?
I think the wolves have pockets.
Little
The wolves
kangaroo
themselves
pouches.
have like kangaroo pouches? Oh.
Joking aside, they're inconsistent. It's a problem for sure. Nick for sure.
Okay.
Nitpick, but it's there.
Also, I guess slight joke. When Jacob gets mad about like the imprint thing with Bella in the garage, and he throws that wrench, he threw it just like how Bella throws pizza.
So violently and in a place where you can't catch it. Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah.
Let's see. We get the flashback story of the Cold Ones, and we have the third wife, who, as Billy described, had a bunch of courage, but apparently not a bunch of brain cells. I don't know. Why did she kill herself? She could have done what Bella did and just cut her arm.
Oh, the third. She did. The best excuse I have for that is she doesn't know that those vampires in the village were attracted to blood, and then that was just
Why would
a
she stab
dire,
herself?
because it was such a huge distraction to cause away of a suicide.
So you think in her mind, her killing herself is the distraction, not the blood.
Yes. Otherwise, it would have been like Bella, and it would have not been a lethal cut.
Wow. I would at this point they've been battling the Cold Ones for a little bit, the village. So I think they would know kind of the MO of the vampires.
To me, it being that it's a lethal cut to kill herself is the knowledge of not knowing how I saw it. Otherwise, then it's
I think it's just
pretty
dumb.
We also remember this could just be because it's their history, but it could also be an embellishment of history. So she, for all we know, Billy just is embellishing that part of the story. When in reality, she could have lived for a few more years longer for any number of reasons because she didn't kill herself. She did the cut, but that's how the legend
Quite a
has
Oh,
remembered her.
retelling.
the
Yeah,
retelling
Quite
the
a
story is
retelling.
like it's like a really dire cut, like sacrifice to
yeah,
kill herself. But
that's the
in
legend.
actuality, it could have been like what Bella did, and she just bled out because they couldn't save her in time.
Yeah, it could
I
have.
mean, I don't think there's anything to really infer that.
There's not, but I'm seeing like the only inferences here that I can draw from is just my knowledge towards Native American culture. They have lots of mythology attached to the way they tell their oral histories. So I could infer a little bit of that here, but I don't think for the purposes of the film that's what they're going for.
Hmm.
Just throwing out another perspective that might be worthwhile.
Look, I have a question for you, being that
Yes.
you know these movies kind of inside and out. What changes the eye color of a vampire?
What do you mean? I mean, like when
From
You
they
got the
like
standard red,
from
and then the
what is
colons are
the
yellow.
red, the yellow, and the black?
well, if you think they're like lightsabers, that's not how that works.
Not what I was implying. No.
I don't. Um, I know when they're like fully vamped out and like
Frenzy
enraged,
mode.
they turn red regardless. But usually contact lenses, corrective contact lenses. That's what they have Bella use in Breaking Dawn.
Out of world is what you're saying.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's not like
Yeah.
it's
Well,
not
no,
like
I mean, in
You're not saying
universe.
in world Alice is putting on contact lenses when she goes in a fight.
No, that's confirmed
No.
in the first movie. Where Edward uses contacts in the
Yeah.
first movie
Just colored
For
contacts.
his yellow.
to hide his yellow eyes in the school. Yeah,
Okay, so the Cullens use yellow contacts, otherwise they're black.
other way around. The contacts are black.
The
The
contacts.
Cullen's eyes are yellow.
Yeah.
And then you can ask, why are the Cullen's eyes yellow when other vampires are red? Which is what I thought your question was.
Because Carlisle
I thought that was between
has
human
that-
blood and
has that
animal blood.
stupid- Oh, that's a cool take.
I thought red eyes were on human blood intake.
Yeah, that was my takeaway why the difference was. But
And yellow
the black
would be
eyes are
vegetarian.
contacts.
Yeah, I also had the same take that you guys had. The red eyes are because of the human blood. They feast regularly on human blood, what nourishes them, instead of what the Cullens have, which is kind of a more subdued black, and they wear contacts for. Right.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
It just was I was questioning it because when Edward arrives at Bella's house and smells like Riley around, his eyes are black.
Yeah.
Whereas when he was in the truck, they were yellow. So I didn't know like the reason kind of that.
But yeah, if
But I
he
guess
was
he
going
just
to
didn't put his
visit
contacts
Bella
on.
at the house where Charlie would be, he would put his public contacts, his black eye contacts in, right?
But
Keep
aren't
up
there,
appearances.
scenes where he's at school, like when he gets Bella out of the car?
I
and
didn't accuse
Jacob's
him of
there,
being
he's-
consistent. I
okay.
brought that
I'm like,
up in the
I
first
don't think
movie
he's wearing black.
as a problem. Because first time we meet him in the classroom and he's disgusted with her, he has the contacts in. And then when he comes back after the week of being gone, she's like, "Are your eyes different?" He's not wearing the contacts this time. So they are inconsistent with them. But they're there.
Okay, I was just curious on Loke's thoughts on that. If there was something more grounded or
No,
interpreted.
I don't think that there's anything specific that I can add that isn't like already plausible.
Okay. A question I have for the group, if it's okay. What makes you guys think Jacob, or not just Jacob, because he gives his reason. What makes you think that the werewolves allow Bella to join their meeting?
Oh, I think Jacob and Billy being lifelong friends with Charlie and her might be the reason, and also because she's now directly involved with everything that's going on.
they know the plan of her wanting to be a vampire. They don't like vampires, so they probably thought this was their way of talking her out of it.
That could be one.
Because
That could definitely be
they
an
don't
angle.
want to. They don't want someone to turn into a vampire on their watch. So that makes sense to me. And yeah, they're close to the family.
Yeah, there's a couple reasons why Bella would be invited. The one that she already is aware of most of their history, if indirectly, and then there's that, which is that I got a little bit of this could be them trying to warn her off of it.
Okay. How I took it, which those reasons are valid. How I took it is Jacob knows at this point Edward can read minds and can't read Bella's, so no one can read Bella's minds about what's being said at the meeting.
That definitely might be another facet to it. So that way it doesn't get it. That way the information doesn't get to the Cullens or their precious oral history.
That's why I took it as safe for her to be there because no one can read her mind on it. Now
Could
Alice
he
could
read
do a
Jacob's
vision.
mind?
Could Edward read Jacob's? Yeah, he can. Does it?
Yeah. Then what's the point?
I don't know.
Being made here.
I think the point is like what
He could have read
invites Bella
anybody's
to it.
mind that was at the meeting.
I mean, he could, but they're not in direct contact with Edward.
Jacob
and,
is.
But Bella's like with Edward all the time. I think that's what was a pushing for Jacob to the werewolves of like, oh, Edward can't read her mind, so it's safe for her to join, which allowed them to be like, okay, she can join us.
I mean, if they're worried about him learning stuff, why invite her in the first place and risk her saying things then? That I don't think this really makes sense to me. This explanation.
Okay, I saw it as one excuse that Jacob can say to allow her to be there.
I don't know why he needed her there. Then he could have just told her what he knows of the story.
I guess that can fall more into a romantic situation of like being around the family.
Okay.
Well, I mean, we also have the part of the scene where obviously the magic being stronger within the clan or the tribe because of partially because of the Cullens, but also because of what's going on in Seattle. There's a big foreboding that comes within the sense of their retelling. Not that that's a literal reason as to why they would have Bella there. It's just another one. Why the writers want Bella there for sure, at least.
Okay. Okay, I guess those all work.
I think it's interesting. Sorry.
Oh. Go ahead.
I think that it's interesting that at least Edward is already suspicious that the Volturi are involved with what's going on in Seattle. So it's kind of interesting to me that I guess that the Cullens are already aware that like they're. I don't think pariahs are the right word, but they're definitely like at odds with the Volturi. So it's interesting that they are already they think the Volturi are involved with what's going on in Seattle by their virtue of them not having involved themselves.
Yes, it's smart connecting the dots from them.
Yeah, and the Cullens believe they're obviously making an army, and I'm gonna be honest. If it's this easy to make a vampire army, I'm surprised that others haven't done
There's humans left.
Yeah.
Oh, I was like, at this point, vampires would rule the earth and have human farms. If it's this easy for vampires to do stuff, why don't they do that?
That's why the Volturi is so adamant about like seeing where they started, as opposed to just taking them out right when they saw them at the beginning.
Yeah.
Like seeing why they got started in the first place, so they can take it from the root. Being more careful about that.
Do they find humans as a huge threat that if they started to take over, that they might not win?
That's what I was going to say. I was like, why don't the Volturi spearhead global domination, I guess? Because I think it would be quite simple for them to do that. We see with shoot, why am I blanking on Victoria? She just sped ran and bit him in the hand. If they just did that to everybody, it would be so easy, so quick.
Yeah, that's true. Well, he was backed up on a corner on the pier, so
Funny enough, this goes towards a lot of some of the logistical stuff that Castlevania tackles in later seasons, where the vampires are organized into separate groups and kingdoms, and they're thinking about conquering the world to a certain degree and setting up human farms as a means of feeding themselves, but also like discussing world domination on a more logistical level. So it's that would be my comparison as to I guess why the Volturi haven't, but it would still be see because of I guess just how easy it is to make a vampire army. I guess I'm surprised that this is either the first time it's happened in a long time or why it's not been done regularly.
In this world, do you think a bullet to the head would kill a vampire?
There's a joke about Edward being bulletproof, I think, at the end.
Bella does say that. I mean, with their weird glass heads, they probably would die, but then they would have to get burned to solidify death, right? Or they would just heal.
that's true.
Because you have to be dismembered and burned to kill a vampire in this world.
A stake through the heart isn't enough.
Not on this one.
Okay, I was just curious, like in a war, if all these vampires are running at guys with guns and just mowing them all down like a bullet, like would just shatter them?
Well,
Just
they're
curious,
also
like,
faster
how
than
they
human reflexes, so
They are, but are they faster to like dodge a wall of bullets?
I
probably.
mean, that's like if they're on a battlefield, they can do all this covertly.
Yeah.
Is this a totally accurate battle simulator vampire
Could be.
moment where
Someone might have to run that.
10 vampires versus 1,000 soldiers. Who wins?
versus a wall of bullets? Are they gonna Neo out of this, or
Are they just going to jump the wall of bullets?
They'll Legolas from the Five Armies, and they'll just walk up the bullets.
Why did you bring that up? That still hurts me to this day. Alright, I'm
Many
running.
people have a lot more points.
Yeah, I'm running low here for first act. So
Okay, we'll do one more round. So, Ryder, one last point. Okay, Crimson.
Okay. Can I do like two short one? Well, one short one longer one.
Sure.
Okay. Post a little image there. Probably put it on the Instagrams. The Riley Byers, or whatever his last name is, missing person poster. Why is the last name capitalized? I don't get it.
it's like Will Buyer.
I mean, even in the little synopsis of his description, that one's also capitalized in there. Fully capitalized, not just the
Are you
first
curious
letter.
why the last name is capitalized and missing?
Yeah, I don't get it.
It's got to be something. It's got to be a cop thing, right? Like a documentation situation. Like, is last names easier to find than first names? Like easier classifications?
I mean, even if that's the case, it doesn't need to be capitalized. They would just look at the last name.
True. I'm just thinking, like in a region, it would be easier to find the last name families versus the first names of people, right? Like, oh, there's 40 Rileys in this town, but then there's like, oh, there's only 2 families by the names of Byers. So narrow the search. But capitalize, I don't know if that's just like an indicator.
That it's a last name.
I guess so. I don't know. That really feels like a cop question of sorts that I'm not knowledgeable on.
I've seen a lot of missing person posters in TV shows, and I haven't seen this pop up before. So either this one's really realistic, and the other ones aren't, or this is just wrong. The others are right. I don't know. Weird. That was the short observation. Longer one. We talked about Alice's powers and how maybe it revolves around the people she cares about. But we also learned she's watching Arrow, the head honcho guy, which means she can direct her visions as well. Thoughts?
Well, look, didn't you bring it up?
in like when there's something going down, and Alice is overwhelmed, she will get visions regardless. But yes, I feel like she is able to channel. I don't think I'm double backing on what I said earlier when I say that. I feel like, um, Alice can focus hard enough on a person and be able to see their future, immediate future.
So she gets these random useful ones, and she can harness and direct where she wants.
Is
Yeah.
it she can direct, but it's random when it occurs?
She's overwhelmed, and she like something happens. Like for instance, when Bella does the cliff diving in New Moon.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Like Alice wasn't necessarily looking at Bella's future, but something alerted her um, on something drastically shifted in Bella's future enough to warrant Alice getting a signal, I guess, of, oh, Bella's in danger. I can't see Bella's future anymore.
It might be
She
the
had a,
strongest point then. She can target the person, but it's a random time when it occurs.
Yeah, that's fair enough.
well, that introduces its own issues. Like, why doesn't she just get a random vision of, ooh, Bella decided to have Lucky Charms this morning instead of pancakes?
Well, that
Well, that's if
doesn't
she's looking at Bella,
that
but
doesn't drastically shift your future, does it?
Well, neither does going to hang out with Jacob to tell
Well,
Edward to disable the car.
I don't know. I feel like uh, love that hard can definitely shift because it's like a friendship love versus what she has with Edward.
Oh,
trying to think of a way around it. Like, what if Alice just said like, "Oh, she's going to go meet Jacob," and Edward took that as like 110% and just went.
Exactly.
Like Alice wasn't like a full warning. It was just like, "Oh yeah, I just got a vision of."
Yeah.
Well, the issue isn't her telling him; it's that she got the vision. If we're talking about how her powers work, she got that vision. But it's being implied by Loque that pursued future, if she actually went to see Jacob, had profound effects going forward.
she would have been Team Jacob going forward, which would have been, I guess, would be considered drastic with regards to this story.
Well, if he somehow managed to change her mind during that talk, but we'll never know. That never happened. That never gone away. Okay.
Huh. All right. Loque.
Yeah.
Final act point for you for this one.
What haven't we discussed? We didn't really talk about the Volturi all that much. I mean, we get introduced to them and later see all their powers, but that's not in this um, act. I don't think I have anything else to add. I mean, Riley and Victoria, Victoria constantly puppeteering behind the scenes. You see a lot of like the whispering and when Riley looks up after um, the New Bloods are like throwing cars and fires in the Seattle streets. He looks up all worried in the sky, and then it pans to Victoria, who is also worried that like her um, her actions aren't going to like come out the way that she's planning because of the Cullens and the werewolves coming to an agreement. I don't know. I feel like it just shows that Riley feels Victoria's worry. I don't know if that's what I'm trying to get at, but yeah. You guys agree or?
Are you saying like
It's
Riley and Victoria are interlinked?
Well, yeah. Well, that's Victoria's power. Victoria can puppeteer.
Okay.
So, did you guys see that when you were watching the movie?
I can see it. I can see it. Yeah, I'm thinking about it right now. It works in the sense for Victoria being able to, I guess, puppeteer, and obviously their shared worry that they would have, because I think there's also a scene later on where uh, the Volturi are kind of up on the rooftop, and you can see that Riley get a whiff of that and get more worried that the Volturi are going to be the ones to kind of crash the party before it even starts.
Yeah.
I didn't really see it in the scene, but I can picture it. It's brought to the attention.
Huh. Shows who was really in charge during Victoria and James then. Possibly.
Possibly, yes.
Okay. Well, I have one last point, but Crimson, with the photo you sent of Riley's missing poster, it states that he went missing May 21st, 2010.
Oh.
So is that stating in world that Bella's school year at the start of the first movie is 2009 and not
All right.
2008?
With all the math we did last time, there is some issues now. All right.
Or actually, if this missing poster is a year old, as they said he's been missing, then it's taking place 2011?
No. They said they constantly put these posters up, so this can just be a new poster.
Okay,
so
but
the parents go around making them.
But then they say he was last seen a year ago? Or went missing a year ago?
I'm missing a year ago, yeah.
So wasn't his last seen what the poster says of 10:15 Friday, May 21st, 2010? And if that was a year before, then it's a year current of 2011?
You're right. That is what that says.
His birthday is 2 days before.
So the whole talk of New Moon we had about the years,
This is worse.
we're 2 years ahead.
I agree. This is worse.
So the first movie, Twilight, came out in 2008. Like the movie takes place in 2010. For people curious, unless something breaks it more. But my final point to make actually was something you brought up, Ryder, in New Moon, that the werewolf gene activates around the presence of a vampire. I was curious with the werewolf clan's backstory of talking about their first instance with the cold one. How was it activated the gene prior for the werewolves in that clan?
It doesn't work. That's the headcanon you can throw out now.
Okay. My only thought to that was that they passed cold ones before the presence of the one in the story, which is what activated it. It just was not on their radar until the one in the story that they talk about.
Yeah, they refer to themselves as
I can think of.
They refer to themselves as spirit walkers, which is a little bit different in the sense that it's definitely more. How about this? It's definitely more casting, practically magic related with when they refer to them being spirit walkers, being able to transform into a wolf. But like I said, I don't know. That could have been how it worked, because there could have been cold ones that passed by, they just didn't know. But they don't really get anything disputing, I guess, that. But I still think it's an issue now that they were able to transform before then. A little bit of one.
Okay. I mean, we don't see them transform before the instance of the cold one, so I would assume that they transformed beforehand, but I would see it as a problem as the instance of this one is what caused the gene to start, because that's completely skipped in the backstory.
Yeah. It could be reactive to more supernatural things in general. Like if it was more generalized, then it's not as much of an issue, but I don't know. We don't really get anything, whether it being a generalized supernatural related thing.
There kind of is. I was about to throw that out there. Billy brings up how all their enemies have gone away except for the cold ones, which could imply there were other kinds of supernatural beings other than vampires
that activated the gene.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Okay, then the headcanon would still work. They would still have transformed. They would still have spirit walkers then by the time the cold ones roll up.
Okay.
Yeah, there could have been other supernatural
vampire
beings.
specific.
Yeah.
That's all that changes.
I think that's a good point. So it could be, since that's generalized statement, yeah, that falls under the umbrella.
Okay, cool.
So
well, with that, we will then move into Act 2, which goes from pretty much here at the end of Rosalie's backstory, all the way up to the snow tent bit with Jacob and Edward. I will say we'll go up to the point Jacob walks in. So the whole discussion they have in will be for Act 3.
Okay.
And let us start with Crimson.
All right. The vision nightmare, dream, whatever that Bella gets, that's just like, oh, Victoria's controlling this in the background. Um, with a vision of Jasper being controlled by Maria slash Victoria and whatever the dream vision thing was. What is that? What happened? Why is this how they figure out definitively that Victoria is involved?
Bella has some kind of power, which blocks her mind from being read. But also these dream vision thingies. I don't know.
Because I mean, you're not wrong. Because the abstract dreams keep coming. Not just in this film,
I
but
mean,
in the next one as well.
we've all seen the movies, except Springs hasn't seen the next one. So we kind of know what Bella's thing is. And it has nothing to do with dreams. It's something else.
Loque, what do you think?
I mean, I don't know. I haven't really looked into it that much. It's a very interesting ideology on what her power is.
Of getting dream vision things and
Yeah, because
her
those
other
happen frequently, and they're pretty elaborate and concise.
Does Bella have her power somewhat like, I don't know how to word, like, does she have a power that shifts the power of other vampires to her
No,
usage?
no, I
No?
don't think so.
Okay, so like Edward's reading minds thing, to her, that taking, like, the reaction to that is can't read mind. She can't, like, her mind
She's
can't
just
be
a
read.
shield. She's a shield. She can like.
Okay. Like her dream visions aren't something based off of her interactions with Alice.
I don't think so.
No, we get nothing for that.
Just like a reaction, like a mutation of a counter to whatever a vampire's power is around her.
Yeah, no, for sure. I don't think she has that, but that would be interesting if she had more than just like the blockage power.
Okay.
So as of now, we don't really have any explanations for this nightmare vision thing.
Yeah, I don't think so. I mean, plot armor. Let's go.
Yeah.
Plot contrivance. Yeah. Ryder, you got anything for it?
Oh, Ryder.
Oh, Springs was going to say something.
Oh, I'm not going to move off the point if Ryder has something.
I do not. I have issues with it because it's not really consistent going forward. It seems odd this is how they figure it out when Alice could just detect her decision to puppeteer.
Yeah. Yep.
Especially as we
Agreed.
get more light shown in this act of I'll segue to a point where Jasper shows his past with I forget
Maria.
which war it is. Is the
It's the Civil War. Yeah, he's a
War?
he's a Confederate soldier.
Where he runs into the three women, the cold ones. That one of them is a puppeteer like Victoria, and that just shows how that power works. So,
Oh, that's okay.
um,
Interesting.
so that also adds into the conversation of not all vampire powers are unique. Some of them are repeated throughout the years.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't pick up on her being a puppeteer, but that makes sense.
Because Jasper was under her spell when he made the New Blood Army in the Civil War.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Man, now that we've established that Alice can focus her things, they've been really hunting Victoria, so she would have her focus on Victoria's decisions, and none of her choices were shown for this army idea
Like I
with
said, her
Riley.
powers are very abstract. Like she talks about how she can't decide to join him until later, but that's still deciding to join him.
That is a decision. Yeah.
Yeah, they're very very abstract with Alice's powers.
Okay. I agree. It's just not solidified. I'll go to what I thought could be different in the extended version, but I thought a tone and pacing nitpick that I thought was weird. So immediately after Rosalie's backstory, um, it's she's saying like blood, like what would you want more once you turned? That she says calmly to then cutting to screaming of a new blood attack of Riley and then the Volturi and all that. And then that finishes after the Volturi spy to Jessica giving her graduation speech. And I just thought a transitional usage between those three scenes could have been used. Just the kind of like hard cuts of tone shift stood out to me. And I don't know if it was like purposeful to make it jarring.
Very well could be, could not be. I don't have an issue with it, whichever direction it may be, intentional or not. I don't think it's poorly executed, but I don't know what their intention with that is.
To me, it kind of felt like the Riley scene with the newborn and the Volturi looking over was thought of like, where should we put this scene? Because I think the calm transition of like the blood of Rosalie to the graduation, like if that was the Riley scene was removed, like picked up and placed somewhere else, I think that would have flowed better. But it just feels like it was plopped in because it needed to be, because it does explain things. But I just think the beginning and end could have seemed better.
I think the first transition, if I were to really nitpick here, I think the first transition is fine. When she talks about this one thing you're going to crave more, it's blood. Cutting to newborns makes sense because that's what Bella's going to be when she's turned. She's going to crave blood like the newborns. So that transition works for me. I think there's also I think the Volturi speech being like intercut with that at like towards the end of the scene is what helps transition into the graduation speech. So I don't know if I have a pacing issue with the tone. It works, but if I were to pick one that is more jarring, I think it'd be going from the Volturi overlooking Riley's newborns to the graduation speech. That would be, I guess, my choice if I were to pick one that was jarring.
And how about that graduation speech, huh? It's really good.
I mean,
as far as valedictorian speeches go, I feel like Jessica hit it right on the head. Yeah. And then Bella is like, "Oh, this all applies to my life."
Doubly so applies to her, yeah.
Yeah. Well, from the eyes of what we've seen, but hey, could have played a Mike too. Mike could be like, "Oh, this is about me."
It's better than the one in Beth Cooper. I'll give you that much.
Excuse you?
Yeah, I know what I said. It's better than the one.
Right is correct.
Yeah.
Rude.
Though I think if I'm going to play fair, the one from Beth Cooper is intentionally supposed to be awkward. Like he's clearly not a public speaker.
Oh yeah, definitely supposed to be awkward.
If I'm picking one that's supposed to rile me up and make me feel good as a young and person who's graduating, I would rather Jessica have been there for Jessica's speech.
Ryder, earlier you stated that, hopefully it was in the recording so far, but you stated that the Switzerland line from Bella, you chuckled at?
Yes.
Found humorous? A line I found humorous was from Carlisle, stating that if they went to war with the newborns, it would be a bloodbath. And I saw that as Carlisle making a joke because vampires don't bleed.
Not in this one, but in the first one, James absolutely bleeds when Edward bites into his neck. So they're just inconsistent. I mean, this whole glass effect thing from this movie was not in the other two movies.
Oh, no, the glass effect is at the end of the previous one, where Edward's getting slammed into the floor.
It's slightly different. Yeah, laying the groundwork for it. It's not in the first one. James.
I'll say it's not in the first one.
Newborns get to a point where then they don't bleed, like become glass, like an evolution situation over time. Because then, like, could James be more recent and like Victoria's new boy toy in the first movie, which is why he bleeds. Because it also brings up a situation to me of Jasper has his marks of when he was bit on his arms, and Bella has one too, but no one else has one from Carlisle. And I was thinking, do scars only are left from newborns?
Well, Bella's human, so
Well, true,
she doesn't have super healing to get rid of this guy.
But the scars only are left from newborns.
I like to imagine that they all have their scars and that Rosalie just does their makeup every morning. Come on.
See, I brought that up in the last one, that they put makeup on to hide the scars. But
It'd be real funny
question.
if that's a consistency that is stuck with compared to everything else we've seen.
Well, that's why they rely on each other, you know? You know, Edward doesn't know how to use a blush palette, okay? He has to have the help.
He's such a complex skin tone. How
Yeah.
is he supposed to match it?
He has to find his concealer tone, you know?
Precisely.
That's why they don't go out during the summer, you know? They don't want to get all pasty.
Vampires, werewolf, and now elf. Wow.
Could makeup hide their glitter effect? Because it's a layer between the sun and the skin.
That is a good question.
Maybe?
Interesting.
Do vampires wear sunscreen? You know, these are the things we got to know.
I know. Do they get sunburnt? Probably not.
I've been thinking about what you guys said about the bloodbath joke, Springs. I actually think Jasper says a line that the newborns will be quote unquote bloody because they still have the blood in their bodies. Like it's not all sucked out when they're still new.
Did he say that?
I remember a line being said about how the newborns will still have all their blood in them. They will haven't.
Yeah, that's why they're
part of why they're ravenous.
Stronger. That's why they're stronger and ravenous.
The only thing that made me stop and not fully like it's a thought of a possibility, but the only thing that made me stop is like if they're so hungry for blood, why aren't they like drinking each other's blood if they still have them?
Well, we see that they do, at least in the warehouse, right? Like they're feeding on each other out of desperation.
I thought they were feeding on a car crash that's not keeping a low profile.
No, I mean the first one. Actually, that might be an extended scene. In an extended scene, there we're introduced to the little girl that's kind of spared from the Carlyles during the fight at the very beginning of one of the scenes where we're introduced to Riley.
Yeah. The red-eyed girl.
Yeah.
Introduced in like a specific way, or she's just cowering?
Yeah, no, she's just
in
cowering.
The background.
Is that there for you guys?
Okay, that's in the normal one.
Yeah, well, she's cowering in the warehouse where the vamps are feeding off of either people or each other.
Okay, and then the other thing that kind of debunks my thought on that is just the one newborn punching one in the head and it just shatters.
Yep.
But I didn't know if that's like a process, like how far along that one was, or.
I think we are putting more effort.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Oh,
so
that happens.
I don't think they could thought about it at all. Yeah. And then it's it'd be cool if they turned to glass. And I think that's all that was.
It is a cool effect. I just wish it was consistent.
I think the newborn punching the one in the head to glass helped give me the Carlisle joke of a bloodbath when there's no blood.
Fair enough. Do we want to talk about Jasper a little bit?
Sure. You've brought up a bit on his backstory, but if you have more.
Like, I feel like we kind of already talked about him a little bit, but like, just like he's like training the wolves, and he's like, if don't let them hug you, or else they'll just like tear you in half.
Don't go for the obvious kill.
Yeah. I like how Jasper actually has some of the limelight in this movie, and it's actually a fully fledged character. We were talking about Emmett not having that much of a character in the first act. I feel like that is true. Having set roles for each character does help entice, I guess, as you're watching the movie.
Yeah,
because the first two, Jasper was barely anything. He was just the risky one because he's still getting used to being around humans.
Yeah,
but now, he's actually a character.
I quite like the layers added for Jasper. I kind of wish we had some real vampire versus werewolf training, because the
Agreed.
werewolves are just
Watching.
observing. Um, and while that's good, I think Jasper comes across to me as a character who would do more hands-on instruction. And while I can infer that happened on screen, off screen, I just would have preferred to have seen it because of how much that they coordinate in the final battle. I would have liked to have seen some setup for that, because it's cool that they're coordinating in the final battle. So I'd like some more support pillars for that.
It's true. It's true.
Yeah, I don't really know what the wolves gained from this other than the verbal information. The watching the sparring, I think, really means nothing because
Well,
it's a
at this
vampire
point,
versus a vampire,
yeah.
and
At
they're
this
not
point,
even newborn or whatever.
sorry, the wolves just don't know vampires, like, at all. They just see them as a threat, and that's all that they gather.
Do you think if a werewolf joined in for sparring, it would be too much in a rage to stop?
I'm gonna go with no, because they clearly can make the conscious choice to be there and not attack them. That already means that they have a limitation. I think they can restrain themselves. You know.
I mean, even with Emmett crossing the stream, Paul didn't try to finish him off. He just stay off the land, just stood his ground,
Get off
and
the
that had
land.
physical contact involved. So
That's true.
So, um, yeah, it's one of those things where it's because it's so integral to the final act of the film. I just want more support pillars for it to make it stronger. Being that it would be cool to see, even if they to see Jasper like helping the werewolf attack him pretty much.
yeah, like if they had like a test wolf there, like let's say Jacob's the test wolf, and one of them jumps on his back, we could have Jasper be like, all right, you have a couple options: roll on your back to roll him off, or uh, request assistance by howling or something, and then a fellow werewolf or one of the Cullens could assist during the fight, and that would go with the teamwork camaraderie building for the final fight.
And it's also, we missed out on one of the typical classic romantic tropes is an Edward and Jacob competition.
That's true.
I'm not saying that needs to be here, obviously. I'm just saying that's usually a classic trope that's included. Like they compete together, and in that they
Try to
form
one
some.
up each other in front of Bella and everything.
Yeah, and then obviously they could still form some form of camaraderie from that when they. So again, all this to say, I actually really like the training scene. I just wish there was a little bit more, because I think it would help the ending fight feel stronger in terms of a payoff.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
Do you think the reason potentially that they didn't do that was so they could save the vampire versus werewolf visual for the climax?
I just assumed it was a CGI budget issue, but that might have been something that
Could be both.
they talked about. Yeah, saving that visual for the end, which I understand why they would want to, but I think for more setup and storytelling reasons, they should have included at least one training instance of Jacob rolling Edward off his back as an example.
Yeah.
I think something that would have added to drama to build to kind of give more of a serious tone of the film's like getting darker would be if like one of the newborns was Mike, Eric, Jessica, or Angela. I think
I'm
that
not
would have
opposed to the idea.
given like Bella like the button and stop, and then everyone like not caring or
That would be interesting.
It'd be kind of a weird tertiary through line to add in there, but I like the idea of it.
I love the potential of the idea. You'd have to change some things about the film. Like
a
obviously
little. I just think with what you said earlier, Ryder, of like how Bella's trying to get the two groups together by sitting at the same table, that kind of would change in this film of like if if it was Mike, okay, let's say it was Mike, and then he died because they had to kill him because it was the fight, and then at school it's like Bella knows the situation, but the people at school are just like Mike died, and he's just another part to the world of people dying, people missing.
funny funny enough, the character I wouldn't pick wouldn't be Mike. It would be the girl that visits Bella when the werewolves are taking over for Cullens on the watch because they're all hunting Victoria, or they're all hunting Riley. Maybe this is an extended scene, but Bella has one of her friends in her room with her, and they talk about life and death, and she pokes fun at him, or she talks to her about the Jacob's obvious interest in Bella.
Doesn't sound
I
familiar.
don't remember that at all.
Yeah,
So,
I think
Loque,
that's
do you know
extended.
what scene I'm talking about?
Can you repeat?
Yeah, sure. It's the scene where uh, Edward just left to go on patrol with Alice and Emmett to go on their hunt for
Right.
Riley, and the werewolves take over their the watch, kind of. And then Bella
Okay.
has a friend over that she's studying with, quote unquote.
Yeah.
Yeah, my pick for sacrificial character for the sake of drama in Sprinks's pitch about wanting to have one of her friends kind of be a victim. I would have picked her purely because of their scene. They talk about her situation not being life and death. That that Edward and Jacob are grown ups and they'll get past their jealousy for each other.
I'm gonna assume that was Angela.
It is
But-
Angela, yes.
Yeah, Crimson. That scene, if I remember correctly, when the wolves take over, it just shows Bella close like her curtain from watching.
Yeah, and them emerging through the bushes. That's
Yeah.
it.
So yeah, Edward closes. She closes her curtain and goes back into her room and continues a conversation with Angela.
Yeah, they cut that.
Interesting.
Yeah, I think if we were going to have a friend turn, whichever one we would choose, I think it would have to put more of the friends in the movie.
Yeah.
They're not really much in it at all. You got the beginning stuff for the most part.
That would be my stipulation as well.
And I feel like that would kind of change the flow of the movie. I don't think that's good for it. I like the idea. I just don't know how it would be integrated in a good way.
Yeah.
I think being the third movie, maybe Jessica then, because we had the dresses in the first movie, and then the movie she went to go see, which is before the biker thing in New Moon. So maybe that might be enough already of friendship for this one, and then I guess the graduation.
Yeah, we
speech.
have the split leading up to the graduation as well.
The thing is, across the three movies, with most of her friends, but we'll go with Jessica, Bella herself doesn't care about any of them. So if she just suddenly, oh my gosh, she died, without any groundwork in what we have, it wouldn't really be believable. It would feel hollow. It would feel like a drama add-in.
Yeah. So, like I said, I see the potential there, but it's just like I'm with you, Crimson, is that we would have to rework the film a bit in order to make it a worthwhile thing to add. Because if it was just thrown in with only a few minor changes, I'm not sure it'd be worthwhile of having. Because I think the little girl already presents a bit of a conundrum.
I guess so. That's where they went more with, but then that focuses more on the Volturi. Or actually, if that little girl instead was like Jessica, and that same instance went by, I think that would have more weight for the Volturi of Bella to be against. And also, the Volturi could have more instance on like human life situation of Bella trying to like cut in and say no, spare her. And I don't know. I just feel like it could add more than just the romance of Bella's mind of like the connection of vampires and humans and whatnot.
Yeah, if like during the graduation party, Jessica or whoever we want to pick would be like, "Yeah, my parents are so excited. They're sending me to Seattle to do this thing," and then that's the last we hear of them until we get the reveal that they didn't survive in Seattle. They got turned. That could be something. There would still be the impact of how much does Bella really care based off of what we've already seen of them, but you could try to integrate it.
Okay, I just thought it would be cool.
I just want to add.
Of course, it doesn't happen though. So
yeah, I'm gonna add a quick note here. I'm really happy for Alice that she throws a successful party.
That's right. No attempted murders.
I know. It's clearly something that she wants. So I'm happy she got to achieve one of her goals, I guess.
I think the party would have been cooler if we saw all the Cullens.
Like not just Alice and
Yeah.
Carlisle.
Like I'm sure Emmett would be tearing the dance floor or chugging the punch or something like that.
It'd be funny if
or someone to try to flirt with Rosalie and she walks off or something.
there's definitely some other there's definitely some other parts of life I guess I would like to see in the party. Maybe a couple of them snuck upstairs and are wondering why there's no beds in any of the rooms.
Oh, that'd be something.
It was cool that. Go ahead.
It's a worm.
Oh, Mike and his worm. It's a worm. Yeah, it was cool that there were werewolves attending the party as like in their minds protection of what could happen, because only Jacob was invited from what we know. But Jacob brought
Party Crashers.
Seth and someone else, maybe Paul. I don't remember who the other one was. Yeah. But there's 3 werewolves present.
Yeah. And it's also one of the things sorry, you finish. Loque.
It was Seth, my boy Boo Boo Stewart.
Oh, it was Seth, the youngest.
Seth, sure. Jacob, and there was a third. I don't know what the third one.
Isn't Seth like 14, 15?
15. Youngest of our.
He's going to high school graduation party? Okay.
I guess you could say he's on a little bit of a war path.
He'd be a sophomore.
Oh.
Yeah, I was going to say freshman's like 15.
Freshman or sophomore is probably what he is. So it's not too out of the picture. What I do like, though, is that because they've already had a sort of temporary alliance looking after Bella at this point, because this is before the training starts between the two groups and start deepening their coordination. I do like that the Cullens don't have much of an issue with the werewolves being there because of their temporary alliance, and the werewolves are the ones obviously patrolling the land, kind of. So it's nice that they're there, not just Jacob.
Yeah.
Let's see, Loque, you got a point.
Yeah. Let me check my notes. So before the tent, Edward's lack of like wanting to have intimacy with Bella, and how that throws a divide between them.
Bella was very ugly, I think, in this scene, personality-wise. She was very manipulative and kind of hard to watch.
I can see that. I do have an anatomy question.
Uh-oh.
Which I'm sure kind of gets answered
Blood
later
flow?
because I know. Yeah, how would he do it? Like even with a pill, how would that work?
He's always rock hard, okay?
He's always rock hard? That's the thing?
Rigor mortis,
He's a man of glass.
Okay.
I'm just curious.
Yeah. I also want to say that there's more to sex than what they imply. So I don't know if it's a full excuse that Bella might die.
Told Charlie she knows the talk. The birds and bees. She's got it.
That was such a good awkward dad moment with Charlie.
That was great. Question,
and his talking to himself after was good.
Did Charlie hint that Bella was a mistake?
I didn't
or
catch
kind
it.
of
What
with him saying sometimes you have to get married because you weren't careful.
And that's kind of like a general statement. I guess you could read into it.
Maybe
I didn't
not
read into it.
Bella being a mistake, but having a child pregnancy, and that's what pushed Charlie to, make a proposal.
I think the main reason Charlie said that was because Bella kept asking questions about marriage.
And he's trying to ward her off.
And she brought up a stigma, I think right at the beginning in the flowers, about getting married. The stigma of, you must be pregnant if you're getting married that young, right? So they set up Charlie's mindset of, talking about marriage, she must have been knocked up. And that's why he would say that line, to kind of test the waters if that's actually what's going on.
Okay.
And there is this degree of there's definitely another layer that would be added to Charlie if Bella was an accident for his marriage. But obviously, it's a happy accident because Charlie loves Bella unconditionally. Says that
Yeah.
she is like the best thing that that's ever
No,
happened.
I guess accident wasn't the right what I meant. I mean, it still could have been, but more of like the conception of Bella is what kind of forced Charlie's hands into making a proposal.
Oh, yeah.
It sounded like from what Charlie was saying is that he had Bella before he was married.
I mean, it really comes down to how old you think Charlie is.
40s?
And Bella is 18. So this would be out of school, presumably, with Charlie.
Yeah,
Charlie
is 27.
Whoa!
He's looking pretty good. Also very sketchy with Bella.
Very.
So I don't think that's.
I mean, I wouldn't want to get married at 9 years old either. Okay.
Agreed. I don't think that's the intention with the Lion Springs, but there's enough to read into it that way. So, I guess that's my thought on it.
Let's go to the writer for.
Yeah, I'll talk about one of my personal. It was a reference / joke that I took with myself. When he's explaining that Bella is his greatest accomplishment, I wrote down in quotes afterwards, like, "I'm limited by the technology of my time," as a reference as to what the line reminded me of. But my immediate response as a joke was like, "Charlie, aim higher."
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah,
I
know.
than Bella.
Yeah, and the reason I bring that up is obviously because it's kind of a meme in the group here, but we all agree how horribly Bella treats Charlie throughout the course of at least these first 3 films.
Yeah,
and Bella's just terrible with everybody. Edward.
It's also on to the filmmakers, just like the film itself, of not having a scene of fixing it, a recovery scene.
Yeah,
I don't like that a lot of the recovery scenes are not shown because they're like integral to Bella and Charlie's relationship. And honestly, I think I just want more Charlie. But
yeah. Let's see. What did I have? Oh, Edward during the intimacy talk. He was talking about being old-fashioned and how he would go to the father to get approval for marriage, and then he proposes to her with the ring in there. I'm like, so you're just saying a load of garbage? I know you didn't ask Charlie. So I just found that kind of dumb. I don't know. He's old-fashioned in every way except the way he was describing he was old-fashioned.
That's right.
Yeah. He's talking about how he's old-fashioned. And I would ask, and didn't.
And then he didn't.
Not good.
I agree. That. And that's not Edward trying to be manipulative onto Bella. That's just him saying like what he is and then just immediately lying.
Yeah. It was not good.
Crimson, no swaying needed. I'm on your side with that. I just
didn't catch. A rare victory right there.
Yeah. That's bad.
I have the same thing written down on my notes, so I agree. Just
Loque, do you agree?
Yeah, I suppose so.
All right. There we go. Unanimous. Edward was dumb.
If we want to go with another bad thing that I caught
in
that
this
I think
movie?
In this movie it's wild. They said because of Victoria's presence, Bella has to be on watch. There has to be someone like keeping an eye on Bella, making sure she's safe. Bella drives from Charlie's place all the way to Edward's place with no protection when Edward answers the door and goes, "What are you doing out there? What are you doing outside?"
I also find the question that he asks is, "What is she doing outside?" dumb because he knew she was coming over.
Yeah. But he didn't go to get her and safely bring her here. She came on her own.
There could have been werewolves following the car. There could have been a Cullen running through the woods
But
tracking the car. It's not impossible that there weren't people following her.
I don't know. To me, it wasn't
We don't
shown.
see it.
Yeah.
But that hasn't stopped before from implying things. Not seeing it.
Let's go to. Oh, unless Ryder's got something there.
Yeah, I got something small. Charlie likes Alice, so Charlie has good
yeah.
taste.
No, I thought that was good on Alice when she comes out of the house. She goes, "Oh yeah, I got squared it up for you. All good."
Yeah.
What a Wayne man.
It was weird seeing that scene. Like, oh, I guess that's right. They actually haven't really met.
I guess that's
weird
right.
that
These characters can
took the
interact in the
third
background without Bella's perspective.
The third movie. But yeah, I liked that Charlie liked her. I liked the interaction they had, even though we didn't really get to directly see it. It was good.
She's making the backstory of how they can keep watching Bella.
Yeah, right.
I also do like I guess the logistical planning that goes into their battle, which is that they're going to use the werewolves to mask Bella's scent, and she's going to drop some blood that's going to attract the newborns.
Yep.
Yeah.
A good thing they didn't go after Charlie because a bit of Charlie's blood's in her too. I don't know how acute the smells are.
I see your point. I don't know though. I don't know how that differs. Loque, I got a question for you. Much like I had the eyes with a vampire, just a question about vampires. What grants one a gift? Like Edward's mind reading or Alice's visions?
Kind of a luck of the draw. Things that happened in their past can correlate. It is kind of just a roll of the dice, though.
Okay, so it's totally
That's how you
fine.
end up with Rosalie's epic, awesome power of just being the beautiful one, and Emmett's strength, and Carlisle's ability to conceal his thirst. Some of them are cool superpowers, some of them aren't.
Okay, so I was
Does
curious.
every vampire have a power?
Yes.
Oh, that is true.
Yes.
Oh. Well, then that kind of really shapes up. I was curious, like, is it fine then that none of the newborns show off a power?
Well, they're
newborns,
not learned
and
their
then,
powers yet. So.
Yeah.
Okay.
They would learn as they if they were to grow older.
So Riley doesn't have one yet. He's still too new.
I think Riley's is just the ability to cultivate the following, like kind of like how Jasper is able to, because Jasper's power is the ability to control emotions. So I feel like Riley has a similar power of being able to either adapt quicker to being a vampire, or maybe it's similar in the strain of controlling emotions, being a leader.
Okay.
Why else would Victoria have picked Riley other than just the convenience of he was right there?
Well, they kind of they address it a little bit, and they chose him because he knows the lay of the land well.
This is true.
Because he was a Forks resident, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, that's what Edward said.
He was moving back into town from college, I think, if I remember correctly. Could be wrong. But, yeah. All vampires have powers, but the powers can drastically differ from basically having no problem. Basically having no powers to fly or something.
Okay. Huh, didn't know that. Good to know. What was James's power?
Super Tracker.
Oh, Super Tracker. Yeah, that's right. Sorry. How could I forget?
I don't know. They made it clear. World's best tracker.
I think honestly, I think his superpower is his directing ability. Honestly, the camera work that he was.
It was very dynamic.
Always having his shirt unbuttoned 3 buttons. That's his power.
Oh, that's true. Okay.
I guess another way, because I was thinking about this has kind of been sitting on the back of my mind now since we talked about Edward being out of character in the sense that he was old fashioned and everything, but what he was doing. Um, what do you guys think of it as the romantic gesture that it is by itself?
Of marrying before
I think it's Edward
deflowering,
finally cracking.
Meaning,
giving
Like
Bella what
he's
she
like
wants.
the
Finally,
only way to get what he wants from Bella is this. Like so, it's a crack under pressure kind of thing.
mm-hmm.
Because in New Moon, I didn't appreciate how he just says "marry me" and it's not a proposal. It just ends with him saying a line. It's not down on one knee revealing a ring. So
He has
here,
a
like
pretty
he's
traditional
finally,
in that regard.
yeah, but he's finally doing the old school tradition here, even after the break of what Crimson brought up. But I also don't know if the bed and this scenario of being in the house alone and like the whole environment and everything's going the way he wants, kind of like setting up the most romantic timing for him to do it. But
I think there's an element of spontaneous semi-romanticism to it, um, but obviously I still have some character issues with it. But I'll turn this over to Crimson because I'm sure you've got an opinion, and so does Loque.
Yeah,
So.
it's and Edward's interesting with his levels of love for Bella, and we get more of it with the tent with Jacob, but he loves her to the point where he doesn't want her to go through with this, and he gives her ultimatums, but she wears him down to the point where he's willing to cave in and give a stipulation. But he knows that's bad for her, so he would rather honor her wish of being a vampire than do what he knows is best for her as a person. But in the tent, we also learn he's willing to let her go for the betterment of herself. So he has two different mindsets that are in complete conflict with each other that they don't really address because he plays both sides of the fence. He wants what's literally best for her, but he also wants what she wants for herself. It's
Hard line to walk.
they don't really pick us. That I don't think they walk it right.
They definitely don't. All right, I was just curious. Loke, do you got an opinion on the romantic aspect of it, if any?
not really. No,
All right,
I feel like they laid it out pretty well.
all right.
alrighty. I have a timestamp of 1 hour, 23 minutes, and 50 seconds. I believe this is where Edward, after what is it, when Jacob takes Bella in the forest, like to hide the scent or something, he's on a cliff edge by the sun. I think this is where. Anyway, there's like direct sunlight, not on him at all, but he's still shining. He's just out in the blue and he's shiny. So I saw that as a break in what they've had in this film.
I don't think it was a break. I think they're just reminding us that he sparkles.
Sparkles in sunlight when they choose to.
He's sparkly.
Yeah, he's sparkly and not every time he needs to be.
That's true.
I think another small detail that I do like is the fact that they make it very clear that, at least it might be an extended scene, but they make it very clear that Victoria doesn't really care for Riley at all.
Yeah, I mean maybe there's something more specific.
Yeah,
There could have been more to it, but they do make it pretty clear.
They make it clear
that's all just a game.
They clearly clear from Edward's point of view, but there's a sequence later in the film or earlier in the film where Victoria and he like kind of making out almost, and they hug, and then we can see her like face drop the moment that he can't see her face.
Oh yeah,
well,
yeah,
well,
yeah.
yeah. That was the time when Riley becomes the Jasper to Victoria's Maria.
Oh, okay.
Of like Victoria finally solidifying the fact that she's just using him.
Okay.
There's no real emotions in play.
Yeah, I was just saying. I think I like the scene, the quote unquote reveal that he's just a puppet.
It's great. I love it.
Yeah, I want to know her powers more because it becomes a problem, I think, in this last act when we get
Yeah,
to it.
you think so?
Yeah.
I think they kind of break down her powers because they're almost exactly like Maria's. So in Jasper's flashback from the Civil War, it kind of shows how Maria um, can puppeteer.
Showing that
Like,
Crimson's chomping at the bit to get Act 3. Just do one last points on the board to get there. Let's begin with let's go backwards. I'll go first. Go up. One last point. What I got is Jacob says he can tell the action from the tent, showing the range of the wolf telepathy.
Yeah.
Yeah,
The
I had
reason
that
why
written.
he can go up there.
Yeah, pretty far because we talked about that in the previous film. What the limits, and we thought it was more localized, but they're pretty far here.
Loque, last Act 2 point from you.
I got nothing.
Okay, sweet. Crimson.
Just one, huh? All right. We find out that Laurent told Victoria about the Cullens' powers, which is a question I wrote earlier in the movie notes, but that gets answered here with this. And I was just thinking, how did Laurent know? Did he just have a vampire power that is able to read other people's powers? Um, it just seemed so weak and thrown in just to give a reason. And I like there's a reason, but they didn't explain the reason to justify there other than, oh, Laurent told me right before he got murdered by the wolves somehow.
I don't think he has any quantifiable powers. Um,
But he's a vampire,
he,
so he's got to have something.
Well,
I mean, he's like what?
he has
He's
to
like one of the
find out what the
first.
powers are.
Yeah, he's like one of the first
We
vampires, though.
we do have the benefit of him being at the Cullens household in the first film. Like he was there in their house to warn them about James.
Right? You think Carlisle was just like, oh, sweet, this is what
No,
Edward's
I
powers
don't think it was.
are.
I
This
don't
is
think it was
what
that explicit.
Rosalia's powers
No.
are.
I don't think it was that explicit. No, but there, if Laurent is observant of, he probably could tell a few things. And it also depends just how I guess old Laurent is, how he's whether he's like extremely familiar with the Cullens, because the Cullens come across as a
Oh,
very generational group.
they've been around for a while, but Laurent didn't know who they were when they entered the baseball
Yeah, which is
area.
just something I'm
So,
gonna have a problem with later on.
so we don't see Laurent learn anybody's powers in the first movie or the second one for what little he was there. So it just seemed like a weak fix to throw in how she learned about Alice's powers.
Yeah, I'm in agreement. I don't because he doesn't. She doesn't really have any reason to lie to Riley in this scene. It would have been interesting if she was very vague and implied that the Volturi told her.
Yeah, that would be
Yeah.
good. But no, she said Laurent.
And that's just there as to as an Easter egg, I guess. Though something a little bit more elaborate than that is they're just referencing a past dead character.
Okay, and then is it Ryder for last point?
Yes. I don't think I got one. Actually, I'm skimming my notes. I think I'm good.
Okie doke. Well then, Act 3 from the shirtless Jacob in the snowstorm.
That 109-degree body.
All the way to the end of the film. We start with Loque. We start with Crimson. Let's start with Ryder.
All right. I'm just gonna pick the obvious one. I quite like the conversation that Jacob and Edward have back and forth. It does repeat in parts. I feel like the conversation is repeated, but overall, I generally approve of what their conversation is about, and how I like that they still keep their disposition towards each other. Like Jacob's like, nah, I still wouldn't be friends with you. But overall, I do think I like the scene. Like I said, can be a little bit repetitive though, in terms of their conversation.
A question with the thing you just brought up of the probably still wouldn't be friends with you. When Jacob says that, or roughly what he said, Edward laughs. Two ways to read it. He laughed because funny statement, or two, he read Edward's mind and knew what he actually does think they could be friends, and he's lying to him. Which one do you think is the likely choice?
You asking
I don't
me?
think Edward was lying.
Anyone? Edward? No, not
She's
Edward.
referring to Edward reading Jacob's mind because Jacob's the one that said the line that they would
Oh.
never be friends, and Edward responds by laughing.
Yeah. So was he laughing because the statement itself was just amusing, or he read his mind and he knows Jacob's lying to him and he found that amusing?
I think it could be both. I didn't see it as he read his mind and laughed at it. But it could be both.
There's a lot at play.
Yeah, being that he can read minds, but we can't hear what he's reading. Only what he conveys.
Yeah, there's no sound cues like Jasper's bit in the last movie.
Oh, that was weird.
Okay, I was just curious because I don't think there's an actual answer to it.
It could be both. It could be neither. I approve in either case because while they're not friends, they at least work together well enough to know that they can both protect Bella. You know.
This whole tent thing is my favorite part of the three movies so far.
Really?
Yeah, I really like it.
I'm in agreement. Then again, I'm always a character focused dialogue person, obviously, but it's probably my favorite as well because it feels like it resolves, I guess, what could be interpreted as fluff on the drama.
Yeah, I like it when two opposing sides have a nice chat.
Nice,
and even though they're pseudo enemies in this, it still feels the same as if they were full on enemies with each other. Just good, enjoyable, good laughs. I love how Jacob absolutely abuses his position here just to rub it in Edward's face. But I like how down to earth they are about it too. It's like, yeah, let her go. I thought about you having her instead because it's better for her. It's just good stuff.
It might not be, but when they come out of the tent in the morning and Jacob goes off his wolf form,
and Seth comes back to the tent.
Yeah, and Seth comes back. To me, that looked very like a big green blue screen set.
Well, it probably was. I mean,
no, they're really on a snowy mountain.
Yeah, that to
just
me
imagine
really
the audio of that. That would suck. Audio
Yeah,
on a mountain.
Like the volume. Is that what it is, Ryder?
Oh yeah.
The big dome. It reminded me of just a very small volume. Is what it looked like.
Yeah, the problem is even the volume I think has more dynamism with that because you don't have to blue screen with the volume, so you don't see the where the set.
Well, the volume
ends.
actually has the image of it. Yeah.
Yeah. So if I were to guess, it's probably a precursor to the volume because there are a few variations as the precursors to that filming technique.
Just didn't look great.
I don't think it was that bad. I think the worst for going for in this mountain area was when Jacob and Bella kissed and they got like the pull out shot of the scenery while they're kissing. I think that looked the worst, but even that I don't think was that bad.
I don't know if it's because it didn't look great for a reason for it, but I think it was kind of smart of them to do it. Is that shot where I thought like, ooh, that's green screen look, what I just explained. As soon as that was finished, it was a lot of talk of Bella and Edward, and it was very close on their face with blurred backgrounds. So the background was not important. And I think that was smart of them to do.
I think there's only one like bad CG moment in this for me, and that was Victoria's death. Her head just plopping off. That I think was the worst CG usage.
Fair enough. I know most of the running sequences with the wolves weren't CG. They were just
They were real
actual
wolves?
pretty sure. And then they later put in like make them bigger and fluffier and stuff.
Oh, I see.
Well, that's
So they
pretty
had
cool.
they had like actual
Reference.
reference
Yeah.
for their walking cycle. That would be cool. I like that if they did. If that is true, that's cool.
I'm pretty sure
That
that's
would
what they did
explain
for
why they
most
look
of
pretty
the
good.
like yeah. But for the battles and stuff, that's all CG.
Yeah. Don't want to abuse animals in these days.
Yeah, we don't want to break an animal's rib cages.
Yeah.
Oh, I would love to talk about that. When Jacob double backs to save, I think it's Leia, taking out that last new blood when the Volturi finally arrive. Jacob double backs to save Leia from the new blood, and the new blood grabs him and breaks his ribs.
Mm.
They make a point of saying that his wolf form has adaptive healing, so he's going to heal quicker than he would if he was in his human form. That's why later, when Carlisle is like mending him, when they go to the after the fight,
Yeah,
basically then in the
going to
movie,
Billy's
when they
place.
go to and Carlisle leaves the house and says he had to break the ribs again so they would heal correctly. I think it's a super cool anatomy because it's just that's how that would work if your bones are healing um, at such a rapid pace. They're not going to have time to actually go in the right place.
Yeah, it also helps in the sense as well because he transitioned forms. So they were broken in one form, and then he transitioned back to human, and
Yeah,
they needed to be healed. They could have been healing him properly because of the transition as well. So it is a nice detail that they put that in there. That it had to be rebroken to heal right.
but that
It's
was cool little.
I agree.
yeah. It is. Agreed. Agreed again.
Uh,
Question: how many cuts do you think it took to cut between in the talk in the tent? It keeps cutting to Bella. How many cuts do you think it was until she's awake and listening in?
I don't know.
Awake and listening in. What do you
Unless you think she's asleep the entire time.
at what point did you think she woke up?
Yeah.
I see no reason to assume she was awake and listening during that.
I mean, she was probably
Oh.
Yeah,
freezing
No, no.
cold and
I'm asking you,
Unconscious,
Springs, because
yeah.
obviously you think she woke up. When do you think she woke up?
I think she woke up when Edward said his line of that Jacob might be friends. Like Edward said we might be friends under circumstance, and it cuts to Bella with a slight like smirk growing on her face before cutting. I think that shows that she's awake to me.
Merc.
Prior, I don't know if she wakes up.
I think
didn't
that's
s-
just Kristen Stewart's face.
Yeah, I don't think she's
I saw
smiling or
his nose.
smirking. If she reacted, I'd probably agree with you, Springs. But I think that was there even before that was said. So I just assume that she was asleep the entire time. I don't have any reason to believe she's awake.
I saw no facial expression change with her each time I looked back at her. And Edward, I keep flopping the names. Jacob could have felt her heart racing to listening, because that's something he could do. So I have nothing to go off of that she was aware during any of that.
Okay. So you two both think she was asleep the entire time.
Yeah.
I have no.
I also think that.
Yeah, I have no reason to think she's
Oh,
awake.
you all agree. Okay. So the cuts to her are fine for all of you?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I guess.
she's the subject they're talking about. Makes sense to me.
I mean, they were done with their dialogue, so they just like panned to Bella, and then the morning came.
Yes, Springs. I do think they are totally fine.
Okay.
You obviously don't think so. So it's what?
I'm on the other side that I think, again, I think she woke up during that and was listening in. I think that's her third cut onto her, because it's like 5 cuts or 6 or something on her. I think that, to me, indicated listening in. If she's
Okay.
asleep the entire time, I think it's egregious how many cuts there are. That is
Okay.
far too many.
I mean, let's
That
go with
is
it.
their use.
She did wake up. She did wake up, Springs. How does that affect the rest of the storyline?
I think that shows her calming to know that Edward and Jacob can work together, because she knows them both very well, and this is kind of their first instance of being together to get to know each other. And I saw that is she knows how Jacob reacts when Jacob's like, "Oh yeah, no, even after a circumstance, we wouldn't be friends." Like, get there, like, to her, she knows that there is a circumstance that could be, which could go to the reaction of Crimson saying Edward read Jacob's mind, knowing the same, which is what Bella overhearing would think the same, which is kind of cute that they both know Jacob at that moment in different ways of what he said, which I think is cool. But just the reason why a sleeping Bella would be cut to 6 times just for a pause of transitional usage so the conversation doesn't feel unnatural, I think is bad.
That's to show she's still asleep through all this talking.
They could do it
I even
twice.
wrote down she's a deep sleeper.
Every time they cut to
They can
Jacob,
do
you
it 10
see her.
times. I don't care. It wasn't that bad. 6 to me was not that bad. It was a long scene.
It is to me.
Have
It was
you
a
ever
long
been
scene.
asleep? Okay.
I think
I've
I
been
have.
asleep.
Yeah.
But have you ever been asleep after being held in Jacob's muscular arm?
Ooh. Not
Okay.
yet.
To
You know, that would put a grizzly bear to sleep. Come on.
I don't know if obviously I don't have an issue with the repetitive nature if it's just showing Bella being asleep or if she's staying awake, because I don't see a change in expression that you saw, Springs, but I'm gonna want to dive a little bit further. Is it the repetitive nature of the shots in the case of her still being asleep that you would take issue with?
Yes. There could have been other usages of situations to use a time cut. Like, it could have been an outside shot while dialogue's still going over of a conversation.
Oh, you mean like, showing the area around them, like maybe you could see Seth patrolling.
Yeah, but still hear them talking.
It detracts you from the close nature of the scene inside. It's all supposed to be close, warm, cozy, personal. We just get establishing shots or Seth patrolling. It takes you out of the scene that's being present, even if you hear their dialogue. Plus, if she listened in to a lot of that conversation and how close they really are, even if they don't like each other, her reaction to Edward realizing about the kiss with Jacob would be a different reaction from her. She probably wouldn't panic that much because she knows Edward's pretty cool with him.
Like, during the day,
Yeah,
would
the
you tell him
following
to just,
day.
like, stop? Crimson, you saw that as panic?
Concern, yeah, she didn't know how he was going to react once she realizes he overheard it through Jacob's thoughts.
Oh, I see where you're going for Crimson. Yeah, that reaction would be different if Bella did listen in on the conversation.
I guess it don't follow, but still, with
She
the
kisses Jacob, goes back up to Edward, and she's stressed about the kiss once she realizes Edward overheard Jacob's thoughts about the kiss. If she overheard their conversations in the tent, her reaction would have been different revolving around that.
Because she would know, to continue off what your point you're making, Crimson, because she would
Yeah.
know that Edward's actually okay with Jacob, that they're cool with each other now. So her concern trending towards panic would be a different reaction upon learning that Edward overheard Jacob's thoughts.
Huh. I mean, I just saw that as, like, when they did have their kiss of Bella trying to stop Jacob from going to the battle. Edward not intervening at all during the kiss was that. because he's right there. And I'm sure
What
his
do you
range
mean?
of
What's
thought is
that?
open.
What is that you just
Like
described?
Edward didn't rush forward and like stop the kid or like say that's
I
enough
don't
for.
care about Edward's motives. I'm talking about Bella's reaction to what Edward would do.
I'm not sure.
If we're going with that, she has the inside knowledge on the conversation in the tent. Her reactions to Edward knowing about Jacob would be different.
I think Bella standing within eyesight of Edward when kissing Jacob and him not doing anything about it gives her all the info she needs when going back
They
to him.
weren't in eyesight. Edward didn't see them kiss.
Honestly, this whole tent scene is filmed much like any like bottle episode. Where so much is happening all at once.
A lot does happen.
Yeah, a lot of factors involved. I don't have any more to add. We're just circling the drain.
Okay, want to talk about the fight scene? Like the choreography of like all of them being in tune.
The werewolf fight or the
like the New Bloods.
The other one. New Bloods fight. Okay, sure.
Right before the Volturi come. And it's like Victoria knows that Edward isn't there and that Edward is guarding Bella. So she goes to find Edward. Then during that, it's like the Cullens battling all the New Bloods. How do we like that cinematic?
I like it's cheesy, mind you, but I'm always about films earning their cheese. I think the film, like I said, while I want it to be more supported and stronger because I like it, I really do like the entrance the werewolves have to the battle. The Cullens kind of draw them in towards the hillside, so the wolves can attack from above, so to speak.
Yeah, I'm a little conflicted because the New Bloods would be able to smell the werewolves. I'm just deciding whether or not they would know what that smell is. Would they know that's werewolves?
That wet dog smell.
I don't know. The only people who I think would know for sure is Riley and Victoria, because maybe Victoria told Riley, but even then I'm not sure because I'm not sure the New Bloods would know.
Yeah, but in terms of the fight itself, I thought it was well choreographed, where we get shots of them like some of the Cullens protecting the werewolves and vice versa. We get Emmett headbutting a New Blood and cracking his own skull, which then got me thinking, why don't their hands shatter when they punch if they're that weak with their own strength? Their own power will hurt them.
I could be wrong. I could be remembering something wrong, but I think Jasper's fist does crack with a punch, but I don't remember.
I feel like that's a physics question. Would that fall into perpetual momentum?
Well, it's about energy exertion.
Yeah.
The amount of force applied.
We don't know the limit of what force needs to be applied in order to get a correct skin look.
We know Emmett does a headbutt, cracks his own head. I imagine his punch is stronger than his headbutt because generally that's the case with, I would imagine, most people. So assuming that the punches are stronger than the headbutt, the hands should also crack or shatter.
Well, with what Loque said that Emmett's power is strength, to differ that I guess he's stronger than the other Cullens or vampires, could there also be an element of durability onto a vampire?
I mean, the durability would only extend to the strength of itself. Like, if Emmett's strength breaks himself, that means his strength is stronger than his durability.
Yes.
So whenever Emmett would put, because we only see Emmett with the headbutt thing, we see Emmett punch something, his hand should shatter at that point.
I'm just trying to think of what he headbutt was stronger than him.
He headbutted a vampire.
Yeah.
So if you punch a vampire, it'd be a similar effect. Assuming his punch is the same strength as his headbutt and not stronger than his headbutt.
All right, I'm gonna pull a writer card and say I'm neutral on the matter because I don't think I'm well equipped with the knowledge of it.
Okay.
Fair enough.
It sounds like a big MythBusters situation.
One thing I did, again, I brought it up a couple times, but one of the things one of the small bits I really like in the fight is the fact that Carlisle and his wife, when they find the little girl trying to hide away, they actually try to protect her. They corner her off from the rest of the fighting because they can leave it to their kids and the werewolves, you know.
Yeah, to go
More
into another
onto them
option.
and how they, you know, interact with potentially new family members. Innocents, I guess.
Yeah, it's kind of, I don't know. It's hard because obviously they're caring, but they're also leaving their allies and family to potentially die.
Yeah, I mean, what the only thing I would need from that is like Carlisle's wife looking at it saying, "Go, I'll protect this one," you know.
Mm-hmm.
So that way they don't both have to be standing there, because you're right that I would prefer them to be helping each other and with their allies and stuff like that. Um, one thing that happens before the fight, regarding Edward's reaction to the kiss, I actually quite like that Edward knows it's his fault that Bella has feelings for Jacob. I kind of like the admission there that why he was okay with that kiss in his mind is because he knows that Bella has feelings and he's okay with that because it's his fault. So I like the admission. Thumbs up. Good character through line for him.
Yes, seconded. There.
Oh yeah.
All right, let's see. I hinted at it earlier, and that's Victoria, her powers. Depending on how strong her puppeteering abilities are, why can't she just convince Edward to stand still and die or something?
Yeah,
That would break her
it's
hold on
true.
Riley.
I mean,
Oh, because
I
you do
think
only one at a time. That would be interesting.
Well, we don't get that established.
Yeah. We don't get much established with regards to her power. So
And even if she can only do one at a time, who's to say that Riley would turn on her? So,
Well, with the words that Edward said, and then I think Victoria's counter to it with Riley is her using her powers on him to make him overtake. Because I don't think without her, Riley could have changed in that moment. Because he really hesitated.
it's hard to say for certain how much of it is him playing or how much of it is legitimate. But I mean, that doesn't go back to the core of why doesn't she even try on Edward?
I don't know.
it might be that she's too focused on trying to keep Riley because she can see Edward's manipulating him. It could be that element. Like I said, I don't know the limitations of her powers, so.
Like, how fast could Edward counter with reading her mind, knowing that that's her intention to do? Like, is it instantaneous? Because Loque brought up that it wasn't until Riley was like hugging Victoria and kissing her that's when it locked in place.
Well, that's when he said the parallel was made.
Oh, the parallel of Jasper. Okay.
Yeah. At least that's how I read the response.
Yeah, that's what I was getting at. I'm not quite sure the exact correlation there of strengths between like when her puppeteering comes into play, but
so is Victoria's puppeteering?
Happen,
yeah, is it instantaneous or does it have to like trickle?
I think it's a trickling effect because she was with James for a while, and that was mutual love. That's why the puppeteering wasn't as like forced
Overt
on James.
Yeah.
Like overt, yeah. But since Riley is the only one in love, I think it's more instant because he's weaker, I guess, or like more lenient to follow her command. If that's a good take, I don't know.
It can fix stuff, yeah. They don't really establish that, but it could be worked in with what we have. And then another issue I had was just the stupidity of, oh, they tracked Edward, his scent.
That's really weird. Yeah.
Especially since they planned for that in the first movie, where they split up and they're like, all right, you go with Edward with Bella's jacket because they know Bella would be with Edward. They already did this in the first movie, but they forgot in this one.
So from on the scale of forgetting, uh, one being they sort of forgot the Iron Fleet, and 10 it was really well done. Where is this like for you?
Uh, uh, two.
Okay.
Well, one being the worst, yeah.
Yeah.
So, 10, 2 makes sense. I don't know. It seems, and I think it's damaging to Jasper. He's just like the smart one, the tactician, the battle planner. He came up with the whole masked Bella scent with a werewolf, but he didn't think of that with Edward.
Not that Edward let himself be carried by Jacob, but it would still be funny.
I mean, he would just have to walk by him. I mean, his proximity.
Yeah, I'm in agreement. It's really weird that they went up there separately. Jacob could have gone up twice. uh, that being said, one thing I did like about this scene is Seth, being the youngest werewolf, still, can coordinate and lay an ambush. I did appreciate that. And he chooses his moment well despite being inexperienced. So, like, he chooses the most advantageous moment to get at Riley.
Yeah. And presumably with, like, sharing minds with werewolves, he would kind of get secondhand experience through other people's memories, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It would speed up the training process.
Yeah.
I do very much like that Edward baits Victoria into staying, though.
Yeah. I mean,
It's
kind of
all
makes her
lies.
kind of dumb, but you will never get a chance like this again.
Yeah,
of course you could.
Yeah,
but...
it's. I'm gonna clarify my statement. It's great in concept. Execution leaves something a little bit to be desired.
Okay. A funny parallel that I wrote down was when Riley was getting munched on the collarbone. He was yelling for Victoria, and he just gets pulled away to die. I just thought of the Mummy too, with Imhotep and O'Connell calling for Anaxamun in the moon, and embarrassing. Evie. Gosh, there we go. I can remember.
Big fan.
I know. That's an immediate comparison on that music.
Loque, do you have a point to make?
I think I've rattled off all of my main points. I know showing the Volturi compassion for the last newborn that they were going to save, played by I think Jodel Ferland or whatever. The little girl.
Oh, that was the Dakota Fanning, right?
That was Jane.
Oh, what was you talking about?
The last new blood.
Oh,
the red-eyed girl.
You're talking about her. Okay, I thought you were talking about Fury.
They were going to spare her because, like, she seemed too scared. She wasn't underneath any of the. She didn't want to fight. She was just there, and they just killed her anyways.
Definitely establishes the Volturi as merciless.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it shows really their power.
I really like that role. I like that role.
I do like that Jasper does go to stand in front of her, but ultimately steps aside when the Volturi make it clear that they're going to kill her.
Yeah.
Felix the Executioner.
Because I'm pretty sure that it's the same actress that voiced Aggie in Paranorman. Pretty sure.
The
But
girl?
she was in another role in the Haunting Hour. Arlstein's The Haunting Hour. Do you remember that, Sprinks?
That might be what I
My
recognize.
I
my
do.
neighbor is a witch or whatever.
I think so.
It's perfect casting, in my opinion, in this movie for her to play the scared um, girl. I guess I don't know. I felt like there could have been more there.
Yeah, no, I agree. I brought up earlier, I think the more that could have been there is if she was replaced with one of the friends from school.
Let's go, Anna Kendrick on the battlefield. Woo!
We learned that the vampires here are allergic to fire.
Yeah.
Do we learn that? I thought we knew that already.
It's a weakness. We learned that in the first one.
We
At the
see
ballet
that
studio.
they've burned the parts, but we see that they're literally allergic. Like Victoria catches fire instantly.
Oh, they're flammable. Yes, they are
Yes,
quite
they're
flammable.
like in the
Like,
first one,
They're burning bodies and the Cullens are coughing.
yeah, in the first one you can sort of pass it off that they started the fire, like threw kerosene on it or something, and that's what caused it. But no, in this one there's none of that. It just instantly ignites.
Yeah, their shiny skin is combustible.
So,
Yeah.
very potentially useful weapon going into the future.
Um, I I don't remember enough of the next two to, but I really like Billy and Carlisle's interaction after Carlisle helped Jacob with
I'm
the
in agreement.
thanking him and shaking hands.
That is what we call a payoff. That was done purely through the world building of the movie. I like that.
Yes, it's very solid. I would like to see that going forward between the two groups. I don't remember if there is any of that, but it's nice to have it here at least.
Yeah, the respect of the handshake held much maturity that I saw.
Yep.
I liked it.
I mean, they didn't just have a vampire on their land; they had him in their house.
And it was the Cullens clan leader meeting the leader, like one of the clan leaders for the tribe. So
Unprotected. No bodyguard with him. Just on his own.
Yep.
And then that to me like shows the reverence that they do have either for the treaty, how much they have grown to accept each other, or there's many things that could play into it. But obviously, if you're going to look at it in the more like simplistic way, there's clearly an arc that the two groups go on over the course of this film that I think is really, really good and paid off well.
Well, the greater good.
Yeah.
The greater good.
Good.
The greater good being Bella, because all the problems in this are because Bella exists.
Yeah. I could be wrong. Could the Volturi not smell the werewolves when they got there? Because Carlisle kind of implies that there is that they did it themselves, just the Cullens.
That is the implication.
That's because the Volturi wouldn't honor the truce between the Cullens and the wolves.
Yes, I get that, but my point here is that wouldn't the Volturi be able to smell the werewolves?
I think the Volturi would, but they don't care.
Fair enough.
They know that there's wolves in the area.
Okay, I mean, like I said, I don't need. It's not a big thing. I'm just pointing out because it was a little odd to me, but I don't have any standing issues with it.
They imply that there was some trickery afoot during this battle.
Yeah,
because they couldn't believe that the Cullens made it out unscathed, and that there had to have been something else that they missed out on.
Out of all of the Twilight movies, this one is my favorite, and I said at the beginning, I still stand by it. But there's just one thing that always pains me in that final scene, is you see all the Volturi's powers, how, like, Felix has, like, strength and, like, the tracking powers and stuff. But Alec, the emo guy, he has the smoke monster hands. They do, like, sensory deprivation and, like, I don't know, they sound sick but you never see it in action. They don't do anything. He just goes smoke time, and then he brings them back, and then smoke time brings them back. Nothing happens with his really cool power.
Does he do that in this film?
Not in this movie.
Oh, okay, one of those situations.
Yeah,
Well, but
it's just
yeah,
it
sorry.
sucks.
I'll also go on the record, may as well do it now. Because I didn't remember much of the films. All I remembered from the film is I thought the first one was the best one. And having rewatched for the podcast, that this one's my favorite so far.
So far.
Who knows? It could be beaten by the other two.
See.
Okay. Point from Crimson.
Yes. So I guess back to the house, Billy's house, with Jacob and Bella. Just more points for Jacob, really. He admits he's tried his best. He's still trying at this point. And him like tipping his hat at Edward, essentially, where when Bella told him that Edward didn't really freak out or seem surprised or anything, and Jacob saying he's a better man than I thought. Just the acknowledgement between these two guys, they have a better relationship than Bella does with anybody, you know.
They do now.
Yeah, and not like a romantic relationship, really, but their dynamic is great. It's
Building a good bromance.
so much respect. Yeah, bromance. Solid. There's not much I would change about the scene. I think. Would I change anything? I mean, Bella just kind of being Bella and not caring about anybody other than herself and the position she puts herself in, but can't change that.
It might be me reading too much, but is Bella like angry at Jacob for breaking up with her in this scene? Because he does technically break up with her. He gets all the breaking done in one go, as he puts it, I think.
Well, the way I read that was she was breaking him, not the other way around.
Okay. Well, yeah, he does phrase it that way, so it works. I agree. Good scene. I like it. Very tender, sweet, and
anything that happened in the movie isn't as detrimental as the final scene.
Yes.
They have to tell Charlie
danger.
about the wedding.
Ooh, danger.
Yeah. Good thing my boyfriend is bulletproof.
Good shoot, what's it called?
Subversion.
Thank you. Yes.
The word we throw around semi-frequently on the podcast.
Yes.
Subversion.
In relation to one individual.
Good job. I like this subversion. It was very subtle, took place within one scene, but I like it. Because I agree, that would be a monumental task having to explain to Charlie.
Well, yeah, and it obviously is better because Edward didn't ask him about proposing to her like he should have, based off of his established old-fashionedness.
Maybe the next film will have something like that, unless it's a recovery scene situation where it's just completely skipped.
Who knows?
No.
Oh man,
Next week.
I might have. Man, I'll read my note out for you. When Bella's talking about like it's not about me, it's not about me choosing you or Jacob. I wrote in my notes. I'm like, oh, Bella's pretending to be a deep and meaningful character.
It's true. It's about who I should be or who I am.
I appreciate
whatever the heck that means.
Yeah, I do. I guess I appreciate what they're trying to go for in concept. I don't think they landed the execution on it.
Yeah, because she's somehow connecting. Oh, I was an oddball. I kind of stood out as being the weird kid to turn me into a vampire. Yeah. She's trying to connect those dots somehow, and she tried.
Though I will say this, it's probably because of her the vampires and werewolves work together, just by virtue of her existing and being a target.
But yeah, because all of their problems revolve around her.
Yeah. So it's not that she doesn't have an important role in other things going on in the story. It's just she doesn't focus on that. I'm just happy. Listen, to be honest, I'm just happy Bella finally remembered Charlie in a scene.
Character growth.
I know.
Well,
I
it's
get.
because it potentially affects her negatively. That's why. So it's not for Charlie. It's for herself.
But hey, remembering Charlie is character growth, as Springs pointed out.
Oh, that Charlie.
I'll go back to the Victoria kind of killing bit, where Edward kills her. There is I guess it's choreography that does not match up whatsoever.
Oh yeah.
When Edward throws Victoria like over his shoulder, and she's front flipping ahead of him, and then it cuts to him catching her from behind where she would be facing him, so that she gets flipped that way, but from behind the back of her neck that he throws her into the ground. But she's also being propelled ahead of him.
Yeah, he
So
has.
she flipped her whole body upon the cut, and Edward sped up to her, or she fell backwards or something.
The implication to me was Edward sped up to interfere with that however he wanted.
Okay,
I'd
so the
have to see the
cut
scene
is
again.
another usage of his like speed through teleportation
That
by
would
not
be
showing that speed.
that would be my guess. I'd have to rewatch though if you're gonna if we're talking to something specifically in the movement that doesn't make sense. Because Edward appearing to catch her, I just tied that to his super speed.
Okay. I mean, it could
Yeah.
be with the instances of how they've used just super speed of just being cuts, like camera work, and not actually like the speed, like the Victoria chase in the woods thing.
He's the fastest Cullens.
But even still, her turning her body in a forward spin doesn't line up.
I'll just say you're probably right, but I would need to look to confirm.
From what I remember, I think I agree about the forward spin part. I think Edward kind of reappearing to catch her, I think I'm fine with. But that's just based off of memory. I'd also want to rewatch it.
Okay. I go with it that it is not correct because of how fast the cuts are. Like it's a lot of like cleanup work for editing. Like like in fights where two people are fighting, it does a lot of like cuts in between to show like a tension of like attacks, but it's actually not contact.
Mm-hmm.
It just shows it's a modern way of filming to do like that cartoon like cloud of cartoon characters fighting, and you just see like a hand come out of it and a foot.
Oh, I see.
Kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's like that usage. It's that movie magic cover up of a fight, and I feel like that happened here with Edward and Victoria.
Yeah, certainly possible.
And then I did just go back and check or whatever. Crimson is correct with Jacob and Bella kissing, and Edward was not within eyesight.
Yeah,
You're correct on that. However, I still stand on my side of the situation of not interacting because him reading Jacob's thoughts of where I still stood with that.
Well, I mean, I don't think anyone opposed that.
Yeah, Crimson's point was focused more on Bella's reaction.
On Bella, reactions. I find that Edward just stayed up there until she came up to him. That was my problem.
Yeah, but still, with the Bella's first question saying you saw as an assumption, and Edward's reaction with no, his thoughts are just loud, then going to the conversation, that answer to me of even her thinking that he was watching and not doing anything about it gives the reaction of that I think it was fine within that instance. To go back to the tent.
Okay, sure. I don't want to have more on that. That was like a half hour. Probably wasn't that much.
Sorry, that's something I've just been stewing over this whole talk since then. So, does anyone have any last topics to go over?
So we talked about how odds are Riley and Victoria could smell wolves. At least Victoria for sure. She's been running away from wolves for who knows how long.
She would know the
And
scent.
neither of them smelled Seth for that stealth attack, which Ryder complimented his strategy on, but neither of them smelled him.
I agree. That is a bit of a problem. The best faith scenario that you could have is that they're too focused on Edward and Bella's scent. But then we're talking about like what scent overpowers the other. You know, do they
I
hyperfixate on a particular scent or?
Like if you're in a room with a freshly baked pizza and a bowl of oranges, I think you could smell oranges and pizza. I don't think you can just focus on oranges or just on pizza. I think you're kind of stuck smelling both.
And there's the reason I bring up the hyperfixation is because I go to bloodhounds, which filter out all the other smells to find their particular one that they've been sent to track. You know what I'm saying?
Well, they can still smell everything, but they can just identify one to follow.
Oh,
But they
yeah,
still
yeah,
smell everything.
yeah, yeah.
I think Victoria smelled Seth, and Riley didn't, because it's unfamiliar scent to him. He hasn't been around werewolves. But Victoria's so set on Bella and being within eyesight and being present there with Edward. I think her mind's just focused on that, and Seth goes after Riley anyhow. And I think that's just a way of her tying up loose ends with Riley.
Actually, it could be that Victoria is fully aware of Seth the entire time. She's just using Riley to bait Seth out so she can focus on Edward to a degree. But that goes against with her trying to run.
Wants Riley.
Yeah,
That
to
would
help.
be choreographing where Riley's standing, because she can't decide where Seth is going to go. I guess it helps. Well, she's even on the right side where Seth comes out of, so
no. Seth is on the opposite end from where she is, but Seth doesn't attack Riley until Riley moves to attack Edward.
okay. I guess best for that is that she's just staying out of Seth's way, knowing of his presence.
Or she's surprised when he pops up and attacks Riley.
Well, yeah, if a giant werewolf jumped and made noise, I'm sure that's a jump scare situation. Sudden. I don't think every single vampire is stoic.
I mean, I guess if you want to approach it that way, that she expected the werewolf just not to jump at that second, but that's not how I think they're playing that at all.
All right, any other last points? Because I'm fresh out.
All tapped out. I got nothing to add, I don't think.
I mean, there was stuff on the mountain, like Edward should have been shining pretty much the entire time. He was talking to Bella about the Jacob kiss. Should have been glistening. No, I think that's about it.
Yeah, I'm out of points.
All right. Well, with that, we'll go to summaries and ratings. Let us start with Crimson.
Okie dokie. I will start with my subjective. How did I enjoy this compared to the first two films? I really liked a lot of Jacob in the previous one, and we get some really good Jacob stuff here, directly correlated with Edward. I think strengthening both of them and their bromance, as the writer coined it there. And is everything else on par with the previous film? And that's kind of what I'm tackling for my enjoyment level. Because we don't get much of the Cullens. Is it Cullens or Collins? I keep
It's
jumping.
Cullens.
Cullen.
Cullens. We don't get too much of them. We get the two flashbacks, but that's about it. We don't get much of them. They're kind of just there for prep and just visual stuff. The previous one, I feel like there was a bit more of them, which is more engaging for me. The action, it was decent in this, so there's some level of enjoyment, but I think at the end of the day, I prefer the previous one, New Moon, but not enough to lower it lower than New Moon to match the first one. So I'll give it a subjective 5. Not horrible, but okay. objectively, I brought up a lot of Alice-centric problems in the first part of the podcast, and it's just something I'm going to have to just give into that, unless they really define it in the later films. So I don't know how much I can just address that directly to this film and not just an overarching issue I have with her powers and how convenient they can be. The something I think they did way better than the first two films is actually integrating the villains, the antagonists in this, because the complaints in the first two were the bad guys were introduced way too late and weren't built up to. This they started the movie with showing the bad guy his origin pretty much. So good. I think they set up Riley enough, not to the degree where he has a personal connection with anybody, but he's there as a vessel for Victoria, which is an established bad guy herself. So I think they did a good job with bad guys. The Volturi kind of just pop in as they are threatening, but they've been hands off, not too much of a presence in the film as a whole. They're kind of just there to remind you we're in this universe, we're still here, we have something to do. And man, I'm rambling a lot. I think the VFX are really good. I brought up the worst one being Victoria's head just plopping off, because he doesn't rip the head off. He bites her neck. She falls over. Head comes off. Doesn't look great. And I think the camera work and all of it kind of just blends away. But a lot of the like nature establishing shots of the mountains and stuff are really nice to look at. They're not too complex, but they're good. Charlie was barely in this, but every scene he was in was good. The humor they integrated was good. I'm saying a lot of good, and I feel like I said a lot of bad. I don't know where all that went. Rambles as I do. I'm giving this a 5.5 objective. Moving on.
All right. Let us go with Ryder next.
All right. I'll start with my subjective, as I typically do, and I'll follow in Crimson's footsteps for this one. I enjoyed this one a lot more than the previous two. This will get a little bit to the objective, but I like the two. I like when different groups come together to face a bigger evil. It's a kind of a tropey thing that will always get to something into my heart and pull on something there. So already the premise of this film has a lot more going for it that I already initially like. And I found myself really enjoying this one a little bit more. It's still very heavy on the romance aspect, because you're not going to get away with that in this franchise. But I appreciate all the world building elements that are going into it, and I appreciate a lot of the surface level world building concepts that are being played with. So overall, I really enjoy this one compared to the others. I'm at a solid 6.5 for this subjectively. Objectively, I agree with most of what Crimson said. I'll add on a couple things. We talked about Edward being potentially inconsistent with over the proposal. We talked about I talked about a lot of what the world building what could have been done in the world building to make it better, because I think there's a lot of good here. So it is, I think, an objectively better film than the previous one. We talked about pacing in terms of the plot. The villains are introduced much earlier. That for me is usually a plot issue that goes in with pacing. So that is not an issue as much in this. I really, really love the story that's told entirely in the world building between the werewolf tribe and the vampires. You get a payoff at the end where both parties who've pretty much weren't allowed to hunt on each other's land, even if they had a common enemy, uh, reconciling to a degree by the end. I really, really like that aspect to the world building that's going on in terms of the story. Uh, I think they did a good job uh, developing, I guess, deepening the relationship that Jacob and Edward have, because they don't share a lot of screen time. So I think that's to this film's benefit that they actually got to share their perspectives with one another and their conversations, and it got to add facets to each other's characters reacting to one another in that conversation. So there was a lot of good to come out of that. Um, some of the bad, yeah, Alice's world building with regards to her powers is very inconsistent. It's very much a convenient writer's tool, and it's hard not to see it for what it is in that light. Um, I think the Volturi, uh, again, they, like Crimson said, just have a they're there to remind you that they exist. Uh, Details I liked. Um, I think that Carlisle and his wife not, taking a minute out of the fight to, to spare the little girl was good. Uh, I think they're. Hmm, I'm trying to do my best to describe this film, and a lot of it comes down to they do a lot of good things, but they don't quite push into great territory. That's why I was very hyper fixated on the flashback scene as an example, because the way I describe that scene is that how one accomplishes so much more with doing essentially the same thing. That's kind of what I think about the film as a whole. They do a lot in this film, but not as much as they could have done with in terms of playing around with their world building concepts and keeping them consistent, playing around with their plot concepts and keeping it consistent. Because the plot, I think, is fair by the numbers. You have your timer. You have your two desperate groups working together. You have Bella at the center of it all, and she's the main character. Um, and at this point, I think Bella's what I dislike about Bella is consistent. I do like that her wit is back a little bit in this film, not to the degree as it was in the first, but it's still there. Uh, you got the blending of the friendship groups. Um, yeah, there's a lot of improvements that happened between on this film, I think. So objectively, I'm at a 6. Not doesn't quite escape the average area for my scale, but it is on the upper end of it compared to the others.
I am amending my 5.5 effect to 6, by the way. Not saving that for recap. There
Okie doke. Why not, Loque? You go next.
6.5.
As a flat score for both?
Flat score all across the table. I think subjectively, objectively, this movie is pretty above standard for what you expect from, especially this series. I mean, it has action, it has a thrill, even getting people like Ryder to be on the edge of their seat, like I think it's a good movie. I like it a lot.
I have a quick clarifying question for you, Luke. What is your area for average on your scale for numbers?
My average for
Yeah.
like not I'd say I would usually rank movies lower than the grand majority would.
Okay.
I'm not that big of a movie guy. I love movies. I've always been into movies, but like when it comes to like rating them and stuff, I've seen that like I'll like them less than other people will like movies.
Mm-hmm.
So like a 4 be your average type
Yeah, I'd
rating.
say like a 4, maybe even like a 3.5 being like my average for most movies I've watched.
Okay. Yeah. The reason I asked the clarifying question because it comes up on mine a fair bit. My average tends to be between 4 and 7, and you have your variations on tending towards bad and tending towards good and great.
Gotcha. That's fair enough. I mean, I've only just downloaded LetterBoxd here recently. Yeah.
No worries.
I mean,
Just
if I love a
Clarification.
movie, it will be an easy 10, but like that's very rare.
Okay, a clarification then to hopefully just balance for the audience. If this one's your favorite of the 5 out of 6.5, which one's your least favorite and what score would you give it?
Least favorite would probably be the first one, and it would be probably be like a 3.
Okay.
But to be fair, I love the series. I just don't like the movie.
No, that was going to be a question I was going to ask at the very end. But since we're on the asking questions segment, why do you love the franchise? What grabs you for the franchise?
Tough to say, really. I mean, the time that it came out, growing up with it. I don't know, just a piece of nostalgia from childhood, I suppose. Fun
No.
looking back. Um, I like seeing um, Taylor Lautner in a role other than Shark Boy. You know.
I think we all can appreciate that a little bit.
I don't know. I mean, you got Carlisle, amazing father figure. You got Charlie, amazing father figure. You got Bella's mom.
A mother, yeah.
An amazing father figure.
I don't know. It's just a series that I've just kept with through the years.
Loke, would Twilight be in your top 5 favorite movie franchises?
Top 5, probably.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd say probably 5th or 4th. Yeah, for sure.
Cool. Okay. I guess that leaves me last. I'll start with my subjective. Oh, was that a question?
Springs.
No,
Springs. He's
Spriggs.
panting now.
What's your
Oh.
rating? What's your
Oh,
rating?
woo.
The crowd goes wild.
My subjective, I like this more than New Moon, and I have it as a 6.5, matching the first movie. I like the iconicity of the first film and the feel of it with the sad Seattle blue and all the kind of standalone story of it and the feel. However, this movie, I like the romance aspect more with Jacob. I like the battle and more playing that out and a more kind of fleshed out story from beginning to end, which is kind of what Loke said, that this is kind of a, you don't have to binge it, but it's just kind of like a standalone feel. Um, so I have it matched with the first one. My objective, I think so far out of the 3 we've covered, this one's objectively the best in my eyes. Only one shot I didn't really care for, which was the panning of um, Edward's teleportation thing in the truck. Other than that, all the shots are pretty good. I understand the usage of them. Even the quick cuts for fights. I think the CGI holds up real good. I think this is probably the best acting of Kristen Stewart in them. Very much so with her reactions to Jacob and the situation and feeling she has for him. I think it's very well portrayed. I think Edward also has very good emotion in this movie. A lot of protection, anger, care, compassion, consideration. It just seems to be a lot rather than the first movie of this teen angst and just love and to be or not to be Romeo Juliet thing. I know that's Hamlet. Let's see. The lighting, overall, fine tones. Doesn't mix well with the vampire skin, but still fine. And I like Sad Seattle Blue coming back in parts. It helps with the world. I really like what Crimson stated, that this is a movie where, like, the third act in the first one is James, bad guy, nothing. The third act of New Moon, the Volturi, bad guy kind of thing. Nothing. This one starts with the origin of kind of the bad guy that's in the background the whole time, and I think that really helps flesh out the story, and give it that, what Loque said, that stand out on its own film feel. Let's see, the writing. Some lines I think are decent and fine, but a lot of it just like contradicts, doesn't fit well with past things. It's a lot of plot heavy things we discussed with like the graduation speech, very connected, and the Fire and Ice, Robert
Cross.
something, the poet, Robert Cross,
Robert Frost.
poet, like
Frost.
how that Frost. Thank you. How that fits
I
in.
invented chill.
How that fits in. Um, and then I think the love bit of Edward and Bella being kind of more on the back burner. It's still present, but a little back and focused a little more on Jacob to give that triangle feel. I do like, and how it's starting to build up then. Jacob's mentality towards what his connection is with Bella, I think, is a little fast and harsh, but then again, he does give the back on Sam and Leia and blanking on the third one.
Emily.
Emily, thank you. Of them and how those thoughts are in his head by what he hears, but then his thoughts of Bella, like how that's all messing with him. He hasn't really celebrated a birthday, so he's either 16 or 17 at this point. So that I like all of that, and that's fitting. Victoria, it doesn't really have much. It really feels like a cleanup job. I feel like more of it's focused on the Volturi kind of being the back spies and like what they do for Arrow and all that, which is setting up for more further along, and I like that. Charlie's Charlie. He didn't really have much, but he's still there. He had Rainer Beer in this one, which was missing in the last one. But yeah, I think it's overall the best one done. I have it at a 7, objectively.
Wow.
Well then, if there's nothing else, gentlemen, shall I read us out?
I got one more.
Oh, you do.
Yeah, Team
the
Jacob
classic
or
one.
Edward. Yes.
Oh yeah.
At this point, what team are we all on? I'm Jacob still, considering from the previous one.
This movie, I think, really gave a good balance onto the two sides, opposed to the other ones, which felt very heavy-handed one way or the other. This one, I think, was a good like balancing scale. I still am Team Jacob.
I will go next. I am also on Team Jacob because Jacob did not have to break Bella's car.
Great reason.
And Loque, did you have it?
I will never forgive Jacob for trying to weasel in a new moon and during the whole movie thing. He's a pick me boy. I can't stand Jacob. I'm not with him. He does have some
Good qualities.
qualifying like characteristics, especially in this movie, that are good, but also I'm Team Seth all the way.
Ah, there we
Yeah,
To clarify,
go. So you want
No.
Bella to be with Seth?
my boy Boo Boo Stewart.
such a funny name. All right. Well then.
No, Team Edward. Team Edward.
Gotcha.
All right, a Team Edward. And Edward snuck in.
That's
Yep.
fine.
Yeah, it is fine.
I'm sorry to disappoint, folks. I'm sorry.
I just felt him pick me boy.
I'm a cold-blooded lover.
All right. Well then, gentlemen, if that is all, shall I read us out?
I think so.
Yep.
All right. Thank you for listening, audience, whether it be Spotify, Amazon, Castbox, Goodpods, iHeartRadio, Pocket Cast, and Samsung. And if you happen to be on our visual side of things, watching our VTubers, PNG tubers, and our slideshow, thank you for sticking around and watching there. Please feel free to like, comment, subscribe everywhere. Tell us how much you hate our opinions or how much you love them. Tell us what team you're on. And As always, I have been a geeky writer.
I'm Crimson Maroon.
And I'm Sprinks. And we had very special guest Loque. Loque, thank you for being a part of the podcast.
Love you
It's
to
great having
death. Thanks so much for having me on.
And we will
Yeah,
catch
like-
you next time. Later, everybody.
Bye.
Toodaloo.